Alara sat numbly on the bed, her eyes glued to the divorce papers Kian had just tossed at her. The man's voice was ice-cold. Alara, you'll carry the guilt of what you did to Chloe for the rest of your life. I was wrong about you. Sign it now. Her whole body trembled, eyes red and swollen, her voice choked with emotion as she cried out, I didn't push her! How many times do I have to tell you? But Kian was convinced. He had seen with his own eyes Alara shoving Chloe down the stairs. He grabbed her wrist, squeezing so hard she thought her bones might snap. Chloe was my ex, sure, but we broke up ages ago. Why are you still so jealous? I'm not, she tried to explain, but in his eyes, every word she said was just a pathetic lie. He'd made up his mind, and that was it. A dead person couldn't prove their innocence. Suddenly, Alara laughed, a heart-wrenching sound that tore through the room. Divorce? Fine by me. She sprang up and scrawled her signature on the paper. Kian, I loved you for 10 years. Guess it was all just a bad joke. From now on, we go our separate ways. Kian glared at her. You think signing a piece of paper ends this? I'll make your entire family pay for what you did to Chloe. Alara froze, her face etched with shock. Isn't ruining me enough? My parents treated you like their own son. What has my family ever done to you? He grabbed her chin, his voice dripping with contempt. Nothing? Your family tricked me into this marriage, and I went along with it. But Chloe was innocent, and you took her life. With all your high and mighty airs, Alara, you're 1,000 times crueler than I am. His words hit her like a bucket of ice water, chilling her to the core. She looked at the man in front of her. So familiar, yet so unrecognizable. Do you really think I'm that kind of person? He burst into laughter, as if she'd told the funniest joke he'd ever heard, his eyes burning with hatred that threatened to swallow her whole. You're not even worth my attention. Stop deluding yourself, Alara. From today on, you'll pay for Chloe's death. Watching him walk away without looking back, Alara's heart sank into a freezing abyss. She whispered, her voice shattered by pain. Kian, what if one day you realize you've misunderstood me? Kian paused for a split second, a strange pang piercing his chest, but it was quickly replaced by cold resolve. For the rest of your life, Alara, you're the one who owes me. The next day, Alara was arrested on suspicion of murder. The only witness was Kian. As they led her away, tears streamed down her face. She glanced back one last time at the man behind her. My biggest mistake was loving you. Kian thought avenging Chloe would bring him satisfaction, but all he felt was an aching emptiness, as if a piece of his heart had been carved out. Life in prison was a living hell for Alara. 5 years of being bullied by other inmates pushed her to the brink of despair. Then one day she discovered she was pregnant with Kian's child. She endured 10 months of pregnancy and hardship, giving birth to a tiny life. As soon as she recovered, she had no choice but to entrust the baby to her brother, Ethan. 5 years later, she was released early for good behavior. When Ethan came to pick her up with her little boy, she hugged the child tightly, vowing never to be separated again. At 12 years old, Alara had joked that she'd grow up and marry Kian. At 22, that dream came true. But who could have imagined that 5 years later, he'd be the one strangling her, forcing her to sign divorce papers and pay for Chloe's life? Alara jolted awake from a nightmare, her body drenched in cold sweat. The past was like a beast that never stopped stalking her, always striking when she was least prepared, forcing her to relive that shattering pain. Mom, another bad dream? Leo walked in with a glass of warm milk, his small frame carrying a maturity beyond his years. Want me to tell you a story? Uncle Ethan taught me a ton. The boy's intelligence always filled her with both guilt and heartache. She ruffled his hair. I haven't been spending enough time with you. Your uncle's been so good to you. It's the weekend tomorrow, how about we hit the amusement park with him? Leo's eyes lit up at the mention of the park. His face was a miniature version of Kian's, but while Kian's eyes were icy, Leo's were warm and gentle, sparkling like they held the entire night sky. Alara hugged her son tightly, soaking in the warmth she thought she'd lost forever. The next morning, as Alara and Leo ate breakfast at a diner, a news report on the TV caught her attention. Sources say Kian Croft, eldest son of the Croft family, will arrive in Azure City by month's end to collaborate with the Sterling Corporation. Both companies went public 5 years ago and have since become formidable financial powerhouses. Before the report could finish, Leo reached over and switched off the TV. He looked at his mom, his clear eyes flickering with a hint of unreadable curiosity. That man named Kian. He's my dad, isn't he? Alara's heart clenched. How do you deal with a kid who's too smart for his own good? She thought absurdly. Is there a way to make him a little less sharp? While she panicked, Leo pinched his own cheeks. Mom, I saw that guy's face on the news. Now look at mine. Alara glanced at the uncanny resemblance between her son and Kian, a heavy weight settling in her chest. To make sure Kian doesn't try to whisk you away with him someday, maybe we should take an overseas trip for the holidays this year. Leo shook his head. Based on industry analysis, Mr. Croft's business network is massive. Even if we go abroad, he'd probably find us. Alara could only manage a weak laugh. Haha, you're too smart for me. After a moment of silence, Leo said softly, Mom, don't worry. I'm not going anywhere with him. Alara's eyes instantly welled up with tears. Why'd you say that out of the blue? Leo looked at his mom, his face serious. I just want to be with you. I don't need anyone else, not even him. Alara couldn't hold back anymore and pulled her son into a tight hug. Promise me, okay? That afternoon, at the entrance to the amusement park, Ethan told Alara and Leo to hang tight while he went to buy tickets. Just then, a sleek luxury car glided past them. Kian's gaze swept over, then froze abruptly. He ordered the driver to pull over. The driver slammed on the brakes. Kian turned his head. Why did that figure look so familiar? Could it be her? His friend Jax leaned closer to look. Whoa, isn't that your ex-wife? And that kid she's holding. Holy crap! He's your spitting image. Don't even try to deny it, that's gotta be your kid. A storm of shock, anger, and an odd, uninvited joy twisted Kian's face into a terrifying mask. Alara dared to secretly have his child? He couldn't even tell which emotion was stronger. That evening, after dropping Alara and Leo off at home, Ethan had to rush back to his studio to meet a tight deadline. Alara called after him, Don't overdo it with work. Ethan teased, Taking care of you is hard enough already. I don't even have a girlfriend yet. Leo suddenly giggled. Uncle's an old bachelor. Alara quickly covered her son's mouth. Don't be naughty. Don't say that, she whispered. But Ethan just laughed. This kid. Be good and listen to your mom, all right? Leo nodded obediently. After Ethan left, Alara gently asked, Did you have fun today? A blast, right? Leo chirped, So much fun. Just then, the doorbell rang. Thinking it was Ethan forgetting something, Leo dashed to open the door. But when he saw the face on the other side, the boy's smile froze solid. Kian hadn't expected his own son to open the door. Over the past 5 years, he'd imagined reuniting with Alara thousands of times. He pictured her cold, distant, or still full of hatred. Never once did he think he'd meet his child first. Hey kid, it's your dad. Leo's heart lurched, his instincts screaming to slam the door shut. But Kian was faster, blocking it with his hand and pushing his way inside. The moment Alara saw him, her heart plummeted. Bone-deep fear and pain surged back, making her stagger. How did he find us? Is he here to take my son? Kian stepped forward. It's been a while. Alara bit her lip, staying silent. But Leo instantly spread his arms to shield his mom, his small face full of wariness. Mr. Croft, my mom and I are law-abiding citizens. Say what you need to say and leave. He grabbed Alara's hand and tugged. Mom, don't be scared. Let's just go to bed. As they turned to leave, Kian's angry voice cut through. Hold it! You're not going to explain this, kid? Alara froze. 5 years of pent-up anguish and pain bursting like a broken dam. She spun around, her voice choked with tears. Explain what? I was in prison for 5 years. Why can't you just leave me alone? Is someone with a criminal record like me worth your visit? He stepped closer, grabbing her arm. Don't assume you know what I'm thinking. When was the kid born? What's it to you? In prison, obviously. Why do you care if someone like me was pregnant? I'm not worth your attention, am I? Guess only Chloe ever was. Say her name, he roared. Alara struggled to pull her arm free. Let go! As she raised her wrist, a tangle of scars came into view before his eyes. Kian's pupils constricted in shock. Unable to hold back, he asked, What happened? Where did those scars come from? Seeing the shock on his face, Alara let out a bitter laugh. Isn't this the gift you gave me? Kian, I've endured enough of the pain you've caused. I'm begging you, just let me go. Kian's hand fell limp, his eyes filled with doubt. Alara lowered her head. Please leave. 5 years in prison had crushed every illusion she had. The eyes once brimming with love now held only shattered hatred. Not a trace of affection remained. He had wanted to cage her, to make her regret for the rest of her life. So how did it come to this? Who had hurt her in prison? Who had broken her proud spirit? A fierce fear gripped Kian, choking him. He was afraid he no longer understood the woman standing before him. They had lived together for 5 years, yet now she felt like a complete stranger. When she looked up, the hatred in Alara's eyes surged like a raging tide. Get out! Kian finally left. Standing outside the door, he kept asking himself, how did Alara become like this? What had she gone through in those 5 years? His chest felt heavy, his hands clutching his collar, struggling to breathe as if being strangled. Inside, Alara leaned against the doorframe, pain silently spreading across her face. Every suppressed emotion crashed over her like a tidal wave. The dark, hopeless days screamed in her ears, pulling her back into the abyss. Mom, want some milk? Leo's voice broke the silence. Alara nodded, pulling her son into a tight embrace. After a chaotic night, she hoped Kian would leave them alone. But the next afternoon, the unthinkable happened. Ethan called, his voice frantic. He couldn't find Leo at preschool. The principal said he'd been picked up. By Kian. Alara clutched her shirt, her fingertips trembling. It's okay. Don't be afraid. Kian had stolen the last shred of trust she had. Now she would use everything she had left to fight him. Meanwhile, Kian held Leo's hand, leading him into the Croft family mansion. Kian's mother, Eleanor, froze for a second when she saw the boy, then asked gently, Sweetheart, who are your parents? She reached to hug Leo, but he deftly sidestepped. You don't need to know who my mom is, Leo said, his voice clear but cold. And I don't care who my dad is. Kian frowned. What's that supposed to mean? Exactly what I said. Leo's eyes showed no trace of fear. Eleanor stepped closer again. Is your mom doing okay? Leo dodged once more. Prison food's covered by the state, so my mom's never gone hungry. Kian's temper flared, and he lifted Leo off the ground. Taught you to talk like that. All sharp and prickly? Was it Alara? Leo tilted his head back, unfazed. Everyone says it. That my mom was in prison. In fact, you said it yourself in front of her yesterday. Kian's heart twisted. He set the boy down a bit roughly. Learned a few tricks from your mom and came here to give me a hard time, huh? If I'm bothering you, let me go, Leo said, brushing off the sleeve where Kian had grabbed him. If you think you can use me to threaten my mom, you're wrong. It'll just make us hate you more. Kian smirked inwardly. So she really does hate me. And she's taught our son to hate me too. How did it come to this? This wasn't what he wanted. He slammed his fist against the doorframe. Kian, stop it, Eleanor pleaded, grabbing her son's arm. Take care of the kid, Mom, Kian muttered, heading upstairs. Eleanor turned to Leo. Did he scare you? What's your name? My name's Leo. Mom says it means to hold on and hope. Beautiful name, Eleanor sighed. Even if you compliment me, I'm not getting close to you, Leo said. My mom's coming to get me. I only want her. A wave of sadness surged in Eleanor's heart. The boy truly despised them. The next day, Alara strode into Kian's company building. She wore light makeup and low heels. It was peak office hours, and her presence drew every eye in the room. The receptionist froze, struck by her aura, and stammered after a moment. Can I help you, ma'am? Kian Croft, Alara said, naming the man the entire company revered, her voice calm and steady. The receptionist hesitated. I'm sorry, you need an appointment to see Mr. Croft. Whispers erupted behind her. She's here for Croft? Look at her, is she some secret mistress? I heard he only ever loved Chloe. So the whole company knew Kian loved Chloe. Only Alara had been foolish enough to think he might one day love her again. Alara took a deep breath and told the receptionist, Just give him my name. He'll see me. Before the receptionist could ask for her name, a voice called out from behind. Hey, what are you doing here? Looking for Kian? I'll take you up. Alara stepped into the elevator, thanking Jax. No need to thank me. I've got business too. Besides, your family still holds shares here. It's not like you're sneaking in. You've done your homework on me, Alara said, her tone laced with sarcasm aimed at both him and herself. Too bad those shares aren't mine anymore. Jax glanced at her, hesitating before asking, 5 years ago? Did Kian put you in prison? Alara didn't answer, only offering a faint, hollow smile. Jax didn't press further. He just knew the Alara standing before him was nothing like the naive girl from years ago. The elevator stopped at the top floor. Jax knocked on the door. Kian says come in. Kian saw Jax with someone else and teased, bringing a date to meetings now? But when he saw who was standing behind Jax, his face changed instantly. What are you doing here? Alara looked him straight in the eye. I'm here to pick up my son. He's my son too, Kian snapped back. No, he's my son. Mine alone. She stared at Kian, her voice dripping with mockery. Didn't think you'd actually want to claim him. You doing okay, Mr. Croft? I thought you hated me to the core. Her words hit Kian like a punch to the face. The love she once had for him had turned into a balanced hatred. I've realized it doesn't matter if I'm innocent or not. What matters is you never gave me even a shred of trust. Don't tell me you're only now realizing there's an unpaid debt between us? A crack appeared in Kian's anger. He shot to his feet. Who taught you to talk like that? Alara met his gaze, unflinching. You did, with your own hands. Kian flinched. You snuffed out every last bit of love I had for you, she continued. What more do you want from me now? A flicker of emotion crossed Kian's face. Looking at the woman before him, he felt an odd sense of being lost. Alara's voice was almost pleading. I have nothing left to give you. You've already taken my family's fortune. I'm begging you, can't you show me even a little mercy? Kian's throat tightened. Seeing her like this, Frustration sprouted in his chest like wild weeds. He tugged at his collar, deliberately avoiding her eyes, and threw out a devilish offer. Want your son? Go entertain clients at Migo tonight. Alara's head snapped up, staring at him in disbelief. You want me to be an escort? Kian smirked. What? You want your kid but can't handle a little thing like that? Alara took a few steps back, shaking her head. You're even crueler than I thought. A strange sense of relief washed over Kian. He thought she'd refuse, but Alara suddenly smiled. Fine. If Mr. Croft wants it that way, how can I say no? One night of entertaining for my son, I'd do it 1,000 times. She looked at Kian, her eyes heavy with weary despair. In her mind, her life had shattered long ago. Breaking a little more wouldn't matter. As Alara turned to leave, she glanced back, her voice devoid of emotion. Just try not to regret it. The door slammed shut. In the office, Kian collapsed into his chair as if drained of all strength, his face dazed. She actually agreed. Kian let out a frustrated grunt. That evening, when he returned to the Croft mansion, Leo was standing alone at the front door. What are you doing out here? Leo looked up, his face expressionless. Waiting. From now on, I'll take care of you. Even your name will change. You'll take my last name. But Leo pulled his hand away. Mr. Croft, have you followed proper legal procedures? If you want custody, you'll have to beat my mom in court first. Kian laughed. You're my son. What tests do we need? Why would I need procedures to raise my own kid? Leo narrowed his eyes. Mr. Croft, I was born after you divorced, so custody legally belongs to my mom. Kian's pupils shrank. He couldn't believe his ears. What did you just say? A 5-year-old this sharp? Leo didn't flinch at his shock. Mr. Croft, if I wasn't your son, if I was some other man's child with my mom, would you still act this way? Kian's chest tightened, irritation surging within him. He looked away, his voice stiff. Don't talk nonsense. Any guy who dared touch your mom would be a dead man. Seeing his reaction, Leo gave a small smile. Mr. Croft, you'll never understand how we've lived these past 5 years. That's why I can't get close to you. He turned, staring into the distance. I'm waiting for my mom. You go ahead. Kian rubbed his temples, exhausted. Why doesn't anyone in this family give me a moment's peace? At 8 o'clock that evening, Alara arrived at the entrance of Migo. She had styled her hair and wore an elegant yet sharp tweed outfit. At the same time, Kian stepped out of a luxury car. Alara looked at him, sadness welling up. From her teenage years until now, she had loved him for 15 years, suffering her whole life. Only now did she realize there was no going back. The price of this realization was her dignity and a shattered family. How did it come to this? Who was pulling the strings behind it all? While she was lost in thought, a drunken man staggered toward her. Hey, pretty lady, you alone? Want to hang with me? Alara's eyes turned ice cold, and she refused him flat out. But the man still reached to grab her. In the next second, a figure flashed by, seizing the man's wrist so hard it seemed his bones might snap. The man yelped in pain. Kian growled through clenched teeth. Get lost! The guy saw Kian's ferocious glare, muttered a curse under his breath, and scurried off. Kian turned to Alara, his voice low. How long have you been waiting? Alara lowered her eyes, her long lashes casting shadows on her cheeks. Not long. 10 minutes. Kian studied her. Alara's posture was flawless, every detail perfect. But that very perfection made her feel like a stranger. Back then, she was always warm, generous, her eyes brimming with love for him. Now, those eyes held only an empty void. The pride that had been broken was long gone, swallowed whole, leaving nothing behind. Kian instinctively looked away, his tone curt as he told her to follow him upstairs. They took the elevator to the 2nd floor, but at the door to the private room, Alara froze. Kian glanced down. What, not going in? Alara stayed silent, her lips pressed tight. Kian smirked to himself. Good. There's still time to back out. Just as he thought that, Alara clenched her fists, pushed the door open, and stepped inside. The moment she entered, an older man whistled. Wow, this one's a knockout. Who brought her? From behind, Kian's lips curled. What do you think, Finch? Like her? Finch immediately pulled Alara to sit beside him. Kian, my man, you know me too well. How'd you know she's exactly my type? Alara gritted her teeth, swallowing her disgust. Finch leaned close to her ear. Want to have some fun, sweetheart? Kian sat nearby, his fingers unconsciously tightening around his glass of whiskey. Next to him, Jax whispered, Kian, should I say something to Finch? No need, Kian said, cold as ice. He wanted to see how long Alara could keep this up. Alara's brows furrowed, but she refused to back down. When Finch whispered in her ear, she gently pushed him away, flashing a dazzling smile. You're Mr. Finch, Mr. Croft's business partner, right? Finch's face fell. Hey, we're here to have fun, not talk shop. Kills the vibe. So it was him. Since Kian's goal was for her to entertain clients, all she had to do was keep Finch happy. With that in mind, Alara turned to the room. I got here late, so I'll take a drink as a penalty first. Go easy on me when we play, okay? Finch laughed heartily. You're too cute. Alara smiled back, nestled in his arm, subtly using her glass to keep some distance. You're pretty charming yourself, Mr. Finch. Watching Alara flash a radiant smile at another man, Kian felt a strange fire ignite in his chest. He'd only brought her here to force her to give in, to make her beg him. Why was she being so stubborn? Jax glanced over and saw Kian's face radiating pure menace. He was really pissed now. Kian, you okay? He asked cautiously. Kian gritted his teeth, his eyes like daggers piercing Alara. I don't care, let her do whatever she wants. Yeah, as long as she finishes the job with Finch, who cares what happens to her? Even if she ends up in bed with him. In the midst of his chaotic thoughts, the room erupted in cheers. You lost! Give us a kiss! Kian's head snapped up just in time to see Finch leaning down to kiss Alara. He roared, What the hell are you playing at? His shout silenced the entire room. But Alara just smiled. Wanna join? Isn't this what you wanted? To see me humiliated? Why pretend to care now? Kian shot to his feet, spitting out 2 icy words. No thanks. But the anger had boiled up from the depths of his heart. He didn't even have time to question why he felt this way. In that split second, his mind was consumed by a single wild thought. Take her home, lock her up. Don't let any other guy touch her again. She's mine, and anyone who tries will pay. Finch seemed oblivious to Kian's darkening expression. He picked up a strand of Alara's hair, bringing it to his nose and inhaling deeply. By the way, you haven't told me your name, sweetheart. At that, Alara froze, unsure how to respond. Seeing her face pale, Finch teased, What? You're not some secret heiress, are you? Don't scare me now. Alara quickly dropped her smile and stood, swaying slightly. I'm feeling a bit dizzy. Gonna hit the restroom. I'll tell you when I'm back. Finch whistled. I'll be waiting, sweetheart. Alara stumbled into the bathroom. She braced herself against the sink. What was she supposed to say now? I'm Alara Croft, the former heiress now reduced to entertaining clients to survive. The dignity and strength she had painstakingly rebuilt would crumble into a cruel joke. Kian approached silently, unnoticed. The next second, she was slammed against the sink. She looked up, meeting his familiar mocking gaze. He leaned down, his voice dripping with scorn. What? Scared I'll tell him who you are? His thumb grazed her red lips with undeniable force, then slid down to tilt her chin up. Why not push him away? If I hadn't stopped it. Were you actually going to let Finch kiss you? Alara turned her face away, eyes lowered, silent. He didn't let her escape. He forced her chin higher. 5 years, and you've lost all self-respect, huh? Suddenly, Alara laughed. She laughed as tears streamed down her face. What right do you have to judge me? Weren't you the one who brought me here? You told me to entertain, and I did. Kian gripped the back of her neck, pressing his forehead against hers. His hot breath burned her face. What if I told you to date him? Then I'd do it. In your eyes, I'm just a toy you can summon and discard, right? You don't care? So why should I? You brought me to a place like this. Did you think I wouldn't get harassed? She shoved him away, her voice trembling. You just wanted to see me humiliated, didn't you? Haven't seen enough? Disappointed yet? Her words ignited his fury. He slammed her against the cold wall, his searing lips crashing onto hers in a punishing kiss. He couldn't even explain it to himself. He should despise her, but seeing another man desire her filled him with rage, leaving only one thought. She's only for me to look at. Alara struggled fiercely. Just then, footsteps echoed outside the door. Kian gave a low, taunting chuckle. Go ahead. Scream. Let everyone see how pathetic you are. Alara shoved him away hard, her voice breaking. Why do you keep tormenting me like this? What am I to you? A toy you can pick up and toss aside whenever you want. Wasn't 5 years ago enough? I've already paid too high a price. Why can't I ever escape you? She wiped her lips as if to erase the humiliation, then ran off without looking back. Kian stood frozen, his heart feeling squeezed. He didn't understand why seeing Alara in pain made his own chest ache with every beat. He must be crazy, or drunk. Why else would he feel these forbidden emotions for the woman he was supposed to hate forever after 5 years? When Alara returned to the private room, Finch was still waiting. The moment he saw her, he slung an arm around her shoulder, casual as an old lover. Kian walked in just then, his eyes darkening instantly. Finch leaned in to whisper, Is there something going on between you and Kian? Alara stiffened, unsure how he knew. She quickly regained her composure, flashing an innocent smile. Mr. Finch, you're joking, right? There's nothing. But Finch wasn't easily fooled. I saw Kian follow you right after you left, he said. Alara lowered her face, not responding further. Then, out of nowhere, she asked, "Mr. Finch, do you really want to know who I am?" Her serious tone made him pause. She said her name was Alara. The name Alara, splashed across headlines 5 years ago. The heiress accused of murder, Kian Croft's ex-wife. The truth hit Finch like a lightning bolt. He gaped. "You're kidding!" Alara replied coldly. "What's there to kid about? I served 5 years in prison. Don't believe me? Look it up online, Mr. Finch." Finch's mind reeled. If this was true, Alara was Kian's ex-wife. So why would Kian bring his ex to entertain clients? He couldn't help asking, "Why did Kian tell you to come here?" Alara laughed, a mix of resignation and self-mockery. "We're divorced. You don't need to think of me as anything to Kian." Exactly. She had never been anything to Kian. Not 5 years ago, and not now. There had never been a place for her in his heart. Before she could finish, Kian strode over. In front of the stunned room, he hoisted Alara over his shoulder. The sudden move sent her into a panic, thrashing and shouting, "Kian, what are you doing? Put me down!" Her voice was a mix of fear, anger, and a deep, unspoken sense of betrayal. Kian only smirked, his voice thick with jealousy and possessiveness. "Put you down? So you can keep flirting with other guys?" Finch, standing dumbfounded on the sidelines, stammered, "Kian, calm down and talk it out. Don't do anything crazy." Kian ignored him, turning to Finch. "Sorry, Finch. Tonight, she's mine. We'll catch up later." Finch jumped up. "Kian, you jerk! You bring a girl here and then steal her for yourself?" Alara's face flushed red. Being carried like a sack in front of everyone was utterly humiliating. "Kian, put me down!" "What if I don't?" Kian said, hauling her out of the room without a glance at the gaping crowd. The jolt made Alara dizzy. Humiliation and rage boiled over. "Let me go!" Kian only mocked her. "Nice one. Quite the vocabulary. That Ivy League education wasn't wasted. You're the one who told me to entertain clients and now you're changing your mind? Let someone else take me home. I spent 5 years in prison because of you, you bastard. What more do you want?" Her words silenced the room. She was Alara Croft, the once glamorous heiress imprisoned 5 years ago. Alara let out a tearful, hollow laugh. "Kian, you've left me with quite a reputation." She didn't want to cry, but fate was cruel. Just when she thought she'd escaped, another blow reminded her she'd never outrun this shadow. "Haven't you humiliated me enough? Put me down!" Alara thrashed on his shoulder, but Kian was unrelenting. "Stay still." Before he could finish, a dull thud sounded. Alara went silent. Panic gripped Kian's chest. He quickly lowered her, pulling her into his arms, calling her name repeatedly, but she didn't respond. In the quiet hospital room, Alara slowly opened her eyes, looking around in a daze. Seeing her silence, Kian knew she didn't want to talk. He spoke first, his voice stiff. "You awake?" Alara shot him a cold glance, saying nothing. Kian sat beside the bed. "What, still mad at me? I saved you tonight, you know." Alara reacted as if she'd heard the lamest joke in the world. "Oh, I should thank you? You ruined my life 5 years ago, and now you're finding new ways to humiliate me. I must have done something truly awful in a past life to be destroyed by you so thoroughly." Her words cut into his heart like a knife. He leaned closer. "You're still trying to justify yourself? Chloe's death." "What if Chloe's death had nothing to do with me?" Alara interrupted. "Kian, just answer me one thing. If it really wasn't me, could you ever repay the debt you owe me in this lifetime?" Kian's pupils shrank. He stared at her, full of doubt. "Impossible. I saw Chloe get pushed with my own eyes. It was you, Alara." But as Alara looked straight at him, her eyes, once filled with love, were now empty, desolate. All her feelings had been devoured by the hatred from 5 years ago. "Kian, I don't hate you, because now I just feel sorry for you. Whether I hate you or not doesn't even matter anymore." Her words shocked him, igniting his anger. "Stop pretending you're innocent. If you had something to say, you should have said it 5 years ago. Have you ever given me a chance to speak?" Alara's voice was choked, exhausted. "No, you never believed a single word I said. I was your wife for 5 years and you never cared about me. Kian, if you didn't love me, why did you marry me? Do you think you did right by me? By Chloe?" Kian finally lost his composure. "You climbed into my bed. That's the only reason I married you." Alara slowly lowered her head, her hair hiding her face. "So that's how you see me. You've really forgotten everything. Love is useless and longing is a joke. Kian, everything I ever did for you was a waste. If I could do it all over, I'd choose to never have met you." She pointed at the door, screaming, "Get out!" Seeing her, Kian was stunned by her raw ferocity. The commotion brought nurses rushing in. Kian was pushed out as they restrained Alara, a needle with sedative piercing her arm. She went limp, passing out again. He didn't understand what was wrong with her. In his daze, he remembered the jagged scars on her right arm. How desperate must she have been to harm her precious hands? She was a designer, those hands were her lifeline. What had broken her so badly she'd hurt herself? When had she become like this? What had she endured in prison? The head doctor approached, handing him a report. "Mr. Croft, your wife's condition isn't good. She's suffering from severe depression, likely from serious psychological trauma. Has anything happened between you two recently?" Kian gripped the report tightly, his knuckles turning white. "No," he replied, his voice flat. The doctor sighed. "Medication alone won't be enough. According to her records, she hasn't been cooperative with treatment. She needs long-term care. Do you know what she likes?" That last question left Kian speechless. He suddenly realized he didn't know what Alara liked at all. Seeing his blank look, the doctor continued. "I suggest you find out. Her condition is severe. Did you know the scars on her arm are new ones layered over old ones? The most recent is from 2 weeks ago. So she'd been hurting herself." Kian's throat tightened. An unnamed emotion clogged his chest, making it almost impossible to face her. But she killed Chloe. He should be glad to see her like this, right? So why didn't he feel the slightest bit satisfied? Kian finally made a decision. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number. "I want you to investigate everything that happened to Alara during her 5 years in prison. I suspect someone impersonated me to harm her." After Alara was admitted to the hospital, Kian brought their son to visit. But the first thing Leo said was, "Mr. Croft, is my mom sick again?" The CEO's face darkened instantly. "Call me Dad," he corrected. The boy already knew about Alara's condition, Kian realized. Suddenly, Leo squirmed, demanding to see his mom. Kian frowned, his voice stern. "Call me Dad or you don't get to see her." Leo hesitated for a long moment before mumbling, "Dad." His cheeks flushed, clearly embarrassed, as he muttered, "Don't make me." Hearing Dad, the frustration in Kian's chest melted away. "You'll get used to it. I'm your father, after all. What's wrong with calling me that?" But the boy lowered his head, murmuring, "But I'm 5 years old. For 5 years, you never once cared about me." "Your mom hid you too well," Kian said helplessly. "I only just found out you existed." Leo's head snapped up. "What about when Mom was pregnant? Don't tell me you didn't know that either?" The question left Kian stunned. He couldn't answer. If he'd known Alara was carrying his child, he might not have sent her to prison. Facing Leo's gaze, Kian felt a pang of guilt and changed the subject. "Enough about that. Your mom's not doing well. I want you to comfort her." Leo lowered his head, his voice soft. "Okay. Mom's really sick. She's usually fine, but anything related to you makes her worse." "Anything related to me?" The words hit Kian like a slap in the face. So, in Alara's mind, he'd become a monster to be avoided at all costs. She couldn't bear anything tied to him. The hospital room door creaked open. Leo immediately saw Alara lying there. "Mom," he called softly. Alara's eyes fluttered open. Her face was pale and gaunt, but the moment she saw Leo, her eyes lit up. "Leo, my love, what are you doing here?" Leo rushed forward, curling up in his mother's arms. "Are you sad again, Mom?" Alara held him tightly, her voice trembling with an apology. "I'm so sorry, baby. Did I scare you again?" Leo quickly shook his head, saying it was okay. "You won't do it again," Alara repeated, "as long as you're back with me." But Leo suddenly glanced at the door. "Mom, he picked me up today. I know you don't like it, but he really is my dad." "No, he's not." Alara's voice was panicked. Leo looked up at his frail mother. "I don't like him either, but having a dad feels kind of safe. But if you don't want to get back with him, I won't push you. Whatever you choose, I'll follow." Hearing her son speak so maturely for his age, Alara's tears finally fell. "Leo, I'm not scared anymore. Let's go home and live with Uncle Ethan, okay?" Leo nodded, his eyes full of determination. When Alara fell asleep, Leo slipped outside. Kian was waiting. "How's your mom doing?" "She's okay," Leo said, then hesitated before using the new term. "Dad, when Mom gets better, I have one condition. You have to let us go back to our family. Mom's not as sad as she used to be." Kian frowned. "Back to that rundown place? You want to keep living like drifters?" Leo's face darkened. "If it weren't for me, would you even care if Mom lived or died?" The question struck Kian's core, leaving him speechless again. "See? You two don't love each other. Staying together would only cause pain. I'm best off living with Mom. You can visit me anytime. I'll talk to Mom about it. Think it over, Dad." Kian felt a pang in his chest. How was a 5-year-old so perceptive? The boy's maturity stabbed at his heart. But this was his son, a Croft. He couldn't let him suffer out there. He had to be raised in the family. In the days that followed, Kian brought Leo to the hospital to visit Alara. Perhaps because of her son, Alara's spirits visibly improved. She was slowly emerging from her depression, though her eyes still burned with hatred whenever she looked at Kian. A few days later, Alara was discharged. Ethan fussed over her. "Take your meds on time. Don't just pop a pill when you feel bad. This isn't a cold. One dose won't fix it." For a rare moment, Alara acted playful. "Ethan, look at me. I'm fine now. I'm usually okay, you know." "What about seeing Kian again?" Ethan's single question froze Alara's smile. Exactly. When she saw Kian, she panicked, lost control. That man had hurt her so deeply that she was trapped in his shadow, afflicted with an incurable disease called memory. Alara took a deep breath, her eyes hardening with resolve. "Some things medicine can't fix. I have to rely on myself. I don't want to live under Kian's shadow anymore. I need a new life, a fresh start. Even with this illness, I'll fight this fear." Meanwhile, in a luxury car parked a block away, "Are you stalking your ex-wife?" Kian shot Miles a sharp look. "One more word and I'll throw you out." Miles just grinned widely. "You've been awfully concerned about her lately. What, finally falling for your ex?" Kian cleared his throat, dodging the question. "I need you to do something for me today." Not long after, an unexpected visitor arrived at Alara's studio. Miles accepted the coffee she offered and got straight to the point. He handed her a business card. "Ms. Alara, are you the designer Dama?" "Sorry, no," Alara denied immediately. "Don't be so quick to say no," Miles interrupted. "My company's launching a spring wedding dress line, and we'd be honored to collaborate with you." But Alara shook her head. "Sorry, I'm not Dama, and I don't want to design wedding dresses. I don't believe in love anymore, so I can't create. Please leave." Miles nodded, not pushing. "I understand. But Ms. Alara, I hope you'll reconsider. Even if you've been hurt, wounds need sunlight to heal. Your talent is yours. No one can take it away. I believe in you." Alara froze, looking up at Miles's encouraging gaze. He stood up. "I'll get going. If you change your mind, call me anytime. Our design team would love to work with you. Thanks for the coffee, it's great." Leaving Alara's studio, Miles headed straight to the black car parked by the curb. As he slid into the passenger seat, Kian asked, "Well?" Miles shook his head. "She refused." "I figured," Kian muttered. Seeing Kian's distracted look, Miles raised an eyebrow. "Why not ask her yourself? Why send me?" Kian's grip tightened on the steering wheel. "If I went, she'd rather die than accept the help." Miles smirked slyly. "True, she'd probably rather see me than you." Kian shot him a deadly glare. "Looking to get yourself killed?" Miles raised his hands in surrender. "Whoa, don't get so heated. I'm helping you make money, and this is the thanks I get?" His voice turned serious. "But really, if you care about her so much, why'd you throw her in prison 5 years ago?" Miles was right. She was supposed to be the person he hated most. So why was he trying so hard to help her? After a long silence, Kian's voice came out hoarse. "Because she killed Chloe. And Chloe was pregnant at the time. But it turns out Alara was pregnant too." "You didn't know," Miles pointed out, his tone dripping with sarcasm. The implication was clear. For his mistress, Kian had locked up his pregnant wife. Seeing the car suddenly speed up, Miles smirked. "What, hit a nerve?" Kian gritted his teeth. "I've been too easy on you. I'll call your grandpa and spill all about your little flings." Now it was Miles' turn to panic. "Kian, that's low. What kind of friend are you? Who said I'm your friend?" Finally, Kian dropped Miles off at home. As soon as he got there, his phone rang. A clear, young voice came through. "Dad, it's me." Kian's tone softened instantly. "Leo, what's up?" Leo spoke like a tiny adult. "Dad, did you see Mom today?" Kian's heart skipped a beat. "Why do you ask?" "Your mom said someone recognized her as Dama and wanted to hire her. I know you sent that person, right?" "He's definitely my son," Kian thought. "Got my instincts." "Yeah," Kian admitted. "I wanted to help your mom." "But why only now?" Leo pressed. "If it's because you feel guilty about the last 5 years, we'll take it. But if it's just pity, we don't need it." Kian's heart sank. "Did your mom tell you to say that?" "No," Leo replied from the other end. "I thought of it myself. Mom doesn't know I'm calling you." Kian sighed. "I just want to help you and your mom. Why won't you let me?" "I don't need a better life," Leo said. "If you don't have feelings for my mom, please don't bother us anymore. But thanks for thinking of us." With that, he hung up. Kian stared at the dark screen, dazed. A wave of panic rose within him. He felt like he was losing both Alara and Leo. Meanwhile, after Miles left, Alara sat alone in her studio. Seeing her glum expression, Ethan walked over and ruffled her hair. "What's on your mind?" Alara looked up, her eyes full of hesitation. "I'm thinking, maybe I should take his offer." "Alara, if you don't want to, don't force yourself," Ethan said. But Ilara shook her head, her gaze clear and resolute. No, I think he's right. Some scars need sunlight to heal. The pain Kian caused, maybe it doesn't hurt as much as it used to. That afternoon, as Ilara stepped into the appointed lobby, a receptionist spoke up. You're Ms. Ilara, right? Please follow me this way. Ilara froze, surprised someone was waiting for her. She nodded and followed. But when the door to the private room opened, she stopped dead in her tracks. Kian lounged on a luxurious sofa, exuding a cold, aristocratic air. His handsome face was shadowed by an icy distance. I'm the one who sent Miles to see you. Sit down and let's talk. There's nothing to talk about. Ilara suppressed her shock, her face hardening as she turned to leave. But Kian's cold laugh stopped her. Ilara, are you that scared of me now? Where's the confident, talented designer from 5 years ago? His words stabbed at her pride, forcing her to stay. Finally, she sat across from him. What do you want? Looking at the woman before him, Kian realized this was the first time in 5 years they'd faced each other so calmly. Ilara was no longer the girl who loved him unconditionally, and he wasn't the same Kian either. He regained his composure and laid out his terms. Let's make a deal. I'll provide orders and connections for your studio. In return, the Croft family will raise Leo. You can visit him anytime, but his life is our responsibility from now on. Ilara rejected it instantly. No need. My brother and I can take care of him. But Kian only smirked. You really want to go up against me? One phone call and I can have you and your brother out on the streets. Leo would be sleeping on the sidewalk with you. Ilara's head snapped up, her eyes blazing with anger and accusation. You're using my son to threaten me? Don't flatter yourself, Ilara, he said coldly. I'm not threatening. I'm just taking back my son. This is the gentle way. If I used force, do you think you could stop me? His words cut into her heart like a knife. Her eyes reddened, her voice choked with bitter resentment. Kian, you're heartless. Have you ever considered that Leo is my son too? Why do you get to take whatever you want while I'm left to just endure? Seeing the tears welling in her eyes, Kian felt a strange jolt. An unfamiliar emotion flickered through him. It had been happening more often since Ilara came back, as if the walls he'd built up over the years were finally starting to crumble. You want to talk reason with me? Ilara, don't you find that laughable? He's a Croft. You've never had a say in his future. Ilara gave a sorrowful laugh. Maybe not, but I raised him for 5 years. You didn't lift a finger. So you want money? Kian said, his voice dripping with contempt, as if he'd seen right through her. 5 million. Call it payment for raising Leo. If you want cash, just say so. Don't pretend to be noble. His scornful gaze clearly branded her as the kind of woman who'd sell her own son for money. Ilara stayed silent, staring at Kian. After a long moment, she laughed, a broken sound that was almost dizzying. Since you're so eager to compensate, I'll assume it's your guilty conscience. 5 million, wired to my account by tomorrow. Free money. Who'd say no? Her smile vanished as quickly as it appeared, her eyes flashing with cold defiance. 5 million's a bit cheap, though. I thought a man like Mr. Croft would shell out billions for his son. I was ready for 9 figures, and you offer just 5 million? She clicked her tongue in mock disappointment. As she expected, Kian's face darkened. Ilara, you're that kind of woman? What kind of woman? She cut in. Careful, Mr. Croft. You might fall for me. She smirked inwardly. If he already thought that of her, she'd play the part. From now on, there was only old hatred between them. No trace of affection left. She straightened her back and stood. If there's nothing else, I'm leaving. The next morning, Ilara jolted awake from a nightmare, murmuring, Don't take my son. Leo beside her immediately handed her a glass of water. Mom, another bad dream? Take your meds. It'll help. Ilara ruffled his hair, her voice weary. I'm sorry, baby. I made you worry again. The boy snuggled closer. Don't be scared, Mom. Uncle Ethan and I will always be here for you. Ilara's hands trembled. I won't ever leave you either, she promised. Leo looked up at her, his clear eyes reminding her of the first time she met Kian. The arrogant, popular college guy, his tie loosened with a carefree attitude. How had the man she once loved so deeply become the cruel person he was today? Mom, is Dad giving you a hard time again? Leo's voice snapped her out of her thoughts. Seeing her son's cautious expression, Ilara's heart softened. She told him the truth. Kian wanted him to live at the Croft family mansion. Leo wasn't surprised. He smoothed his messy hair. You said no, right, Mom? Ilara gave a strained smile. Yeah, your dad even offered us a lot of money. Don't be sad about me, okay? Leo said quickly. Having money is great. We can go on a trip with Uncle Ethan. Ilara nodded with a smile, hiding her real fear. She knew her ties with Kian weren't over. The 5 million was probably just the opening act in his plan to humiliate her. She hugged her son tightly, comforting both him and herself. Leo, I won't let anyone take you away. Later, Alara headed to her studio. As soon as she walked in, Ethan greeted her with a grimace. Alara, bad news. All our studio's contracts got canceled out of nowhere. Alara froze. What? How did this happen? Simple. We pissed someone off, Ethan said. His words made everything click for Alara. It had to be Kian. He was using his power to show her how easily he could destroy their livelihood. His goal was clear: force her to hand over Leo. She clenched her fists, her resolve hardening. No matter what, she wouldn't give her son to that man. She was Dama, a name respected in the design world. She wouldn't be blacklisted so easily. Someone would be willing to help. Ethan looked at his sister's defiant stance and sighed. He knew how stubborn she could be. She'd fight, even in the darkest moments. But he didn't know how long they could hold out. Meanwhile, in the CEO's office at Croft Enterprises, an assistant reported respectfully, 3 more companies have officially canceled their contracts with Ms. Alara's studio. What was Alara's reaction? Kian asked calmly. She didn't react at all, the assistant replied. Then added, after the cancellations, they didn't sue for breach of contract or make any complaints. Kian's eyes flashed with anger. The business had completely stalled, effectively blacklisted by the industry, a death sentence for any studio. How could Alara stay so calm? It seemed she was determined to fight him to the end. A cold smile flickered across his lips. If she wanted a battle, he'd give her one. He'd see how long she could hold out. One day, she'd come to him, head bowed, begging. A couple of days later, Alara discovered that all of her design work had been scrubbed from the internet. Ethan was shaking with rage. This isn't just targeting us anymore, he's trying to cut off our livelihood. You carried his son for 10 months, you went to prison for him. How could he do this to you? Alara's lips trembled, but she forced herself to stay strong. Ethan, there has to be a way. We can't give up. I will not hand Leo over to him. At that very moment, Leo was standing outside the CEO's office at Croft Corporation, blocked by a secretary. He told her he was there to see his dad. The secretary had seen her share of women claiming to be Mr. Croft's latest fling, but a child was a new one. She looked him up and down with disdain. Little boy, who put you up to this? Is your mother trying to use you to trap Mr. Croft? Leo's cheeks flushed red with anger. He clenched his little fists. My mommy doesn't care about your Mr. Croft, but I really am Kian's son. The secretary actually grabbed the collar of Leo's shirt and started dragging him away. I don't hit children, she snapped. But a brat like you needs to be taught a lesson. Who did you just call a brat? A voice as cold as ice cut in from behind them. The secretary froze. She turned slowly and saw Kian standing there, his face a thunderous mask radiating a suffocating pressure. Panic seized her. This kid is a liar. He said you were his father. He is my son. Kian cut her off. So what? It seems my secretary has gotten bold. First you insult my son. What's next? Are you going to walk all over me too? The secretary's legs gave out and she collapsed to her knees begging for forgiveness. But Kian didn't even look at her. You're fired. Go to accounting and get your final paycheck, he said, before scooping Leo up and walking into his office. He set Leo down on the sofa and crouched in front of him, the icy aura around him instantly melting away. What did you need to see me about? He asked, puzzled. Leo looked him straight in the eye. Was it you? Did you give the order to push my mommy into a corner like this? The smile on Kian's face froze. He never imagined his son would come to him just to accuse him. Are you here to question me? Not question, I'm here to get justice for my mommy. Kian let out a short, sarcastic laugh. There's no such thing as justice in this world. Power and status are all that matter. Daddy, I don't agree with you. Leo was getting emotional, his eyes turning red. My mommy and my uncle are trying so hard to live their lives. Why do you have to push them around? If you're doing all this just for me, then please stop this pointless game. Kian reached out and gently wiped a tear from the corner of the boy's eye. Did Alara tell you to say that? He probed. Did she send you here to tell me her little tactics won't work? Leo stared at Kian for a long moment, then suddenly he smiled. It was a smile of understanding that didn't belong on a child's face, and it made Kian's heart sink. Mr. Croft, you wanted me, right? I'll come back to the Croft mansion with you. Just stop pressuring my mommy. Kian was completely stunned. The kid not only refused to call him dad, but also had such a disappointed look on his face. Are you sure? Leo nodded firmly. Kian took out his phone and dialed Alara's number. You should tell your mom, otherwise she'll think I kidnapped you. The moment the call connected, Kian's cold voice cut through. I'm taking Leo. From now on, he's the young master of the Croft family. Alara's voice was a frantic scream. Kian! Who gave you permission to take him? Tired of her hysterics, Kian simply handed the phone to Leo. The boy swallowed his sadness and spoke softly. Mommy, you can come visit me. It'll be like we're not even apart. So you've decided to go enjoy a life of luxury, is that it? Leo's eyes instantly filled with tears. It's not like that, he explained frantically. I just don't want to see anyone bully you, Mommy. On the other end of the line, Alara finally understood her son's sacrifice. Her voice was so choked with sobs she could barely speak. It's my fault. I'm useless. That's why you have to do this. Don't be sad, Mommy. You can come see me at the mansion. Mr. Croft didn't say you couldn't. I know. As soon as you get there, I'll come find you. Just then, Alara's voice, full of defiance, came through the phone. Are you really determined to fight me for our son? He's a Croft. There's nothing wrong with me bringing him home, is there? Kian cleared his throat, his tone softening slightly without him realizing. If you want, you can come live here with him. Alara's voice suddenly became firm, filled with a desolate resolve. Let's go to court. Kian was taken aback, then laughed mockingly. Jax is the best lawyer in the entire city. You want to take me to court? Alara, are you being naive? Then I'll see you in court. Alara fought back tears, declaring that when it came to her son, she would never back down. The line went dead. Kian stared at the dark screen, a mix of emotions churning inside him. Had he really just asked her to move in? Ridiculous. Alara tried to find a lawyer to take on Kian, but she was turned away 5 times. The moment she mentioned Kian's name, they all politely declined. But she wasn't ready to give up. It's okay, she told herself. If I can't find one today, I'll find one tomorrow. As Miles was driving past the mall, he happened to see Alara standing on the side of the road. Surprised, he found a place to park and walked over to her. Alara didn't notice him until his shadow fell over her. She looked up and saw Miles, instinctively taking a few steps back. Miles chuckled. Why are you so scared of me? Last time, I really was just trying to help you and Kian. He trailed off when he saw her frown, her eyes clearly saying, let's see you talk your way out of this one. Seeing her expression, Miles dropped the act and apologized sincerely. Okay, my bad. I lied to you last time saying it was a business collaboration when I was really just helping Kian find you. I'm sorry. Please don't be mad. He paused. You look down. Did something happen? I'm looking for a lawyer to sue Kian, Alara said, her voice cool, but with a tremor she couldn't hide. He took my son back to his family's home without my consent. But Leo is my son too. Miles looked surprised, then concerned. Honestly, that's not going to be easy. Forget Seaview City in this whole state, beating Kian in court is next to impossible. Even though she had expected it, hearing him say it made Alara's heart sink. Seeing her face pale, Miles didn't have the heart to crush her hopes further. Look on the bright side, he said. The Croft family has money. Leo won't be mistreated living with Kian. You're still young. Don't let yourself get trapped by Kian. You can have a fresh start. For me, the best thing is having my son with me. Alara cut him off. Without him, what's the point of a fresh start? I'm not telling you to give up on him. You can go to their house, see him, play with him. But you need to free yourself from the idea that he's a chain holding you down. Do you know what I mean? Seeing her stunned expression, Miles added, You are the most important person in this equation. Don't forget, you're Alara. The name Alara felt like a needle piercing her heart. Her eyes reddened as she looked at Miles. Thank you. Every time we meet, you always find a way to comfort me. As a show of gratitude, she offered to buy him dinner. Miles smiled. Can I pick somewhere expensive? The question made her laugh. Kian gave me 5 million. 1 meal for you is nothing. Miles pointed to a Japanese buffet in the mall. As they walked in, he mentioned he loved Japanese food, and Alara smiled in agreement. Me too. 5 years ago, I set a record here. 22 plates of sweet shrimp in one sitting. Miles paused, the menu in his hand. 22 plates? When the food arrived, Alara's eyes practically sparkled. Seeing her finally happy, Miles asked casually, Who were you with? The time you ate so much? Alara's hand froze mid-air. After a moment of silence, she answered, With Kian. Sweet memories from 5 years ago flooded her mind. But in the end, they were all just a one-sided fantasy. Sophie frowned at the sweet shrimp in front of her. Kian, I don't like sweet shrimp. If you don't want to eat, you can leave, Kian said coldly. Sophie pouted. Are you really that annoyed to be out with me? If my grandpa hadn't set this up, you wouldn't have even come, would you? Kian wiped his mouth, not bothering to hide his feelings. Frankly, if your grandfather hadn't asked, I wouldn't have even acknowledged you. Sophie's eyes welled up with hurt. How can you treat me like this? I like you so much. Can't you give me even a little bit of attention? Kian's mind drifted, and an image of the Alara from 5 years ago appeared in his head. She was a proud, elegant heiress to the world, but with him she was gentle and patient. Her eyes always filled with the hope that he would finally notice her. Kian, are you listening to me? Sophie slid closer, pulling him back to the present. Why don't you be with me? My family can help you. It would only be a good thing for you. Kian sneered. You think I need a woman to get ahead? Sophie panicked. No, that's not what I meant. I heard Alara is out of prison and I'm afraid she'll start bothering you again. I can be your shield. Please, just be with me. Kian refused without a second thought. Rejected, Sophie's spoiled princess attitude flared up. Why? Do you think I'm not good enough? The Alara from 5 years ago can't even compare to me now? Kian's eyes turned to ice. Sophie, don't push it. You don't have the right to talk about Alara. He stood up. If there's nothing else, I'm leaving. And in the future, don't use your grandfather's name to ask me out. I still have respect for him. Don't ruin it. But Sophie was persistent. I'm coming with you. Even if you don't drive me home, I'll follow you to your house and get a cab from there. As the car started, she suddenly pointed out the window. That looks like Alara. Kian's heart dropped. What did you say? He asked, turning to look. I just saw a woman on the street who looked a lot like Alara. She was with Miles. You saw wrong, Kian said stiffly, but a wave of irritation washed over him. When they arrived at the Croft mansion, Kian walked straight in. Sophie shamelessly followed him. He was just about to turn around and kick her out when she let out a cry of surprise. Is this your son? He looks just like you. Leo hopped off the sofa. Who are you? He asked, his voice bright. I'm your daddy's new girlfriend. Kian finally lost his temper. Don't talk nonsense in front of my son. Leo glanced at Sophie, then turned to Kian. Wow, your standards have really dropped. Kian looked helpless. She's not... Fine, I'll take your word for it, Leo said, his expression instantly changing to a sweet smile. He turned back to Sophie. Ma'am, why are you blocking the entrance to our house? Are you trying to break in? His words made Sophie's face turn beet red. Your daddy invited me in, she finally sputtered. Kian crossed his arms. Leo copied him. The two of them, one big and one small, stood there with identical expressions that screamed, Go on, keep lying. We're watching. Even Sophie's thick skin couldn't handle it. Her eyes filled with tears as she yelled at Kian, I won't give up, you'll regret this. Then she covered her face and fled. Leo watched her go, looking intrigued. If that were my mommy, she'd never be so rude. Hearing the word mommy, Kian's thoughts drifted back to Alara. The elegant, aloof heiress had always been too proud to chase after a man like that. Leo suddenly turned, his tone serious and far too grown up for his age. Mr. Croft, do you still have feelings for my mommy? Kian frowned, not answering. He didn't know. He did think about her constantly, but he told himself it was just hate. Leo looked at Kian's cold profile, his heart filled with disappointment. Mr. Croft was perfect on the outside. Family, fortune, connections, all top tier. But was a man who didn't care about his mommy really worth her throwing herself into the fire for him a second time? The answer was clearly no. Leo's eyes darkened. 3 days later, when Alara showed up at the house, Kian was helping Leo with his homework. The moment Leo saw her, he dropped his pencil and ran to her, his voice filled with joy. Mommy, how have you been? I'm doing great here, you don't have to worry. Alara looked at her sweet boy, her heart overflowing with love. She cupped his little face and promised she would be back to take him home soon. Her firm tone gave Leo a sense of security. But Kian, as always, had to ruin the moment. Don't waste your time. No matter how long I give you, you'll never find a lawyer who dares to go up against me. He paused, his voice dripping with condescension. If you ask me, I'm not against the three of us living together. You might as well just give in. Alara couldn't stand it anymore. Kian, how can you be so cruel? She interrupted. What more do you want from me? I did the 5 years. I took all the blame and the shame. I'm out now. Why won't you just leave me alone? Kian acted as if he'd heard the world's funniest joke. You're the one who showed up at my door. How is this me bothering you? Alara, you were never supposed to be in my life again. But you showed up with a child. You can't blame me for being suspicious of your motives. Alara quickly covered Leo's ears, trying to shield him from the hurtful words. Leo is my son, and he's your son too. No one would suspect their own child. Aren't you afraid of hurting him when you say things like that? Kian froze, his gaze shifting to the little boy in her arms. Leo's clear eyes were filled with disappointment. Mr. Croft, he asked, do you think my mommy is using me to get your attention? His young but firm voice left Kian speechless. This is between adults. You wouldn't understand, was all he could manage. Leo pulled away from Alara and bravely stood in front of her. You're right, I don't understand. But Mr. Croft, if mommy wanted your attention, she could have used me to bargain with you when I was born 5 years ago. But she didn't. She hid me from you for all this time. Don't you get it? Get what? That Alara hated him from the bottom of her heart, so much that she wished she could disappear from his life forever? Kian couldn't face that thought, couldn't admit it was true. He could only twist her intentions to fit his own narrative. "If you're done, you can leave," he said, dismissing them. Alara stroked Leo's head, her gentle words hiding a steely resolve. She told him she had to leave for a while. Hatred flared in her eyes, but her voice was calm and cold. "Fine, as you wish. I'll disappear from your sight. How about that?" Kian's heart skipped a beat. He watched her walk away, suddenly at a loss. Leo watched Alara leave, his eyes red and his lips trembling. "Mommy," he whispered. That single word was like an invisible rope, tightening around Alara's heart. Her steps faltered, as if time had frozen. But after a brief moment, she gritted her teeth and walked on, never once looking back. Kian watched her go, a sharp pain piercing his chest, as if an invisible hand was squeezing his heart. Wasn't this what he wanted? An unfamiliar unease settled in his heart. He called her frantically, but the only response was the robotic voice telling him her phone was off. It was clear Alara was truly gone from his life. She glanced at the time in a daze and her eyes widened. "How did I fall asleep? The deadline is tomorrow, I have to keep going." Her head was spinning, her body was chilled, and her throat ached. She realized she had a cold. With a resigned sigh, she stood up and decided to go to the hospital. "For my son," she thought, "I have to get better quickly." A handsome doctor took her temperature, clicking his tongue in surprise. "You're lucky you came in when you did. Any later, and it could have been dangerous." Alara thought the doctor looked familiar, but before she could say anything, a wave of dizziness washed over her. The world went black, and she collapsed. When she opened her eyes again, the first thing she saw was the familiar yet strange face of Kian. Her eyes shot open. She tried to speak, but her throat felt like it was being scraped with a knife. Still, she forced the words out. "What are you doing here?" "It was Jax's brother who called me," Kian explained. He stood up and gently helped her sit up. Alara leaned against the headboard, her mind drifting back in time. She remembered being the pampered heiress, meeting Kian for the first time at a lavish party. He was dashing, she was elegant. Who would have thought they'd meet again like this? It was so ironic, it was almost laughable. Kian handed her a glass of warm water. "He recognized you, so he called me. I have to say, Jax's brother is pretty broad-minded, calling his patient's ex-husband for help." Alara took the glass without a word. Seeing her silence, Kian picked up an apple and began to peel it. "You know, Alara, you're a real failure at life," he said as he worked. "You're so sick you don't even have anyone to come to the hospital with you. You might as well just come back to my place. Like I said, I'm not against the three of us living together." She forced a pale smile. "You don't need to worry about me, Mr. Croft. If you're not busy, you should probably get going." Kian froze. Who did she think he was? Alara saw the stunned look on his face and gave a sarcastic laugh. "It's just a cold. I'm not going to die. Aren't you a busy man? There's nothing between us anymore. If you came here to laugh at me, well, you've seen it. You can go now." Laugh at her? He had rushed over here, paid her bills, handled her paperwork, and she thought he was here to laugh at her? The anger boiled inside him, leaving him feeling suffocated. He forced down his rage and shot to his feet, shoving the peeled apple into her hand. "I just came to see how pathetic you could be on your own. There's nothing here worth my time." He stormed out, slamming the door behind him with a loud bang. Alara sat on the bed and let out a self-deprecating laugh. Care about her? He never cared about her feelings when he was hurting her. Now he was suddenly acting concerned? How ridiculous. After her IV drip was finished, Alara went to handle her discharge paperwork alone. Weak and unsteady, she nearly fell, but a strong hand caught her just in time. "Are you all right?" a pleasant voice asked with concern. Grateful, Alara quickly thanked him and turned to leave. But the man seemed curious and asked for her name. Just then, someone from the Croft family appeared. "Miss Alara, Mr. Croft is waiting for you. The young master is with him." A flicker of surprise went through Alara. She hadn't expected Kian to still be waiting after all this time. As she stepped out of the hospital, Leo came running towards her like a happy little deer. Alara immediately crouched down and pulled him into a tight hug. "Did you miss Mommy these past few days?" Leo nodded vigorously. So much." He reached up and placed his little hand on her forehead to check her temperature. Satisfied she was no longer feverish, he scolded her like a little adult for not taking care of herself. His cute, concerned tone made Alara laugh, but then her nose started to sting. "You're right. Without you here, Mommy can't even sleep well." Leo seriously encouraged her not to give up hope, promising he would work hard to come back to her so she could one day bring him home. Alara's eyes welled up again as she stroked his hair and agreed. She asked if Kian was treating him well. Leo assured her he was, telling her not to worry and to eat well. The love in her son's words filled her with warmth. But just then, a teasing voice with a slight accent came from behind her. Well, well, is this your son? Leo immediately became vigilant, standing in front of his mother like a little knight. What do you want? He demanded, accusing the man of staring at his mother. The handsome mixed-race man wasn't offended. He just pinched Leo's cheek. I was looking because your mom is beautiful from behind. Leo was furious. You better not try anything with my mommy, he warned, his cheeks puffed out. Alara quickly pulled her son back, telling the man to stop joking. Just as the atmosphere grew tense, Kian appeared like a cold gust of wind. What do you think you're doing? He roared, positioning himself between Alara and Leo, shielding them as he glared at the other man. The man looked completely bewildered. And who are you? I'm his father, Kian stated coldly. The man's gaze shifted to Alara, a flash of surprise in his eyes. You're married? He's my ex-husband, Alara clarified. The man's expression turned playful. Oh, so you're the ex. Kian wasn't in the mood for games. What do you want? He demanded. The man just shrugged, said he wanted to know Alara's name, and then walked away with a casual wave. Alara told Kian to take care of Leo and turned to leave as well. But Kian grabbed her arm. I'll give you a ride. Alara shook him off without a second thought and walked away without looking back. Kian watched her go, a strange irritation bubbling up inside him. I never noticed before. Why are there so many men around her? A few days later, Alara lay exhausted on her sofa. Her work was stalled, and her son was still not back with her. She felt like her life was trapped in a vortex, and the feeling of failure was drowning her. Just then her phone rang. It was Sophie. On the other end, Sophie cheerfully invited Alara to a coffee shop, saying she had a business deal to offer. Alara was immediately suspicious. She remembered clearly that Sophie had been obsessed with Kian 5 years ago and was still chasing him now. There was no way this was a friendly call. But for the sake of her business, she agreed to go. An hour later, Alara arrived at the cafe. When Sophie saw her, she was taken aback. 5 years, and this woman was still as proud, as cold, and as stunningly beautiful as ever. Alara got straight to the point. Why are you offering me a business deal? Sophie claimed she felt Kian wasn't worth the effort and wanted to form an alliance with Alara. Alara just laughed in her face and told her she didn't need her charity. Sophie, furious, accused her of being ungrateful, but Alara was unfazed. Sophie had just mentioned that someone had asked her to set up this meeting. A pair of arms wrapped around Alara from behind. A familiar, smiling voice, the same mixed-race man from the hospital, said, "We meet again." Alara turned and found herself looking into a pair of blue-green eyes. She immediately broke free from the man's embrace and put some distance between them. The man clicked his tongue and shifted his gaze from Alara to Sophie. "Didn't you tell her who I am?" Sophie rolled her eyes, her annoyance at her brother's fawning clearly written on her face. "Kenji, you show up and you're already all over her. We haven't even had a chance to talk." Alara was stunned. She never would have guessed this man was Sophie's brother. Sophie quickly explained that Kenji had been living abroad for the last 5 or 6 years and had been out of their social circle for a long time, so it was normal that Alara didn't recognize him. "So you're saying it was your brother who wanted to see me today?" Alara asked, still processing. Sophie tossed her hair. "That's right. My brother has a design brand overseas and he wants to do a limited edition collaboration with you." Alara knew there was no such thing as a free lunch. "What are the conditions?" she asked immediately. Kenji leaned in closer. "There is one condition. Come work for my company. If you need a job, you can be officially listed with us. We'll give you creative freedom, but we'll need to sign a contract that includes a commission percentage." Shocked, Alara asked him why and what he would possibly gain from it. Kenji gave her 2 reasons. 1, I think you're incredibly talented, so having you at my company is a win for me. He took another step closer, his lips near her ear. And 2, you're Kian's ex-wife, and you're totally my type. Get with me, and I can help you make his life a living hell. Not a bad deal, right? Alara gave a cold smile, seeing right through him. You're right. It's a win-win. Afterward, Kenji told Sophie to leave. She grumbled that she wouldn't have bothered helping if it weren't for Alara. Once she was gone, Kenji introduced himself. "My name is Kenji. I'm the eldest son of the Sue family. I did 5 years in prison. Does that scare you?" His words struck a chord with Alara, and her defensiveness immediately vanished. She extended her hand. "My name is Alara. Same here." They went into the cozy coffee shop. Once seated, Alara asked him to get straight to the point. Kenji beat around the bush for a moment before admitting he was interested in her, for now, because she was beautiful and had a great body. His blunt, almost crude honesty left Alara speechless. He explained further that people overseas were more impulsive and passionate, and that those feelings often faded quickly. He wanted to have a physical relationship with her, and she was free to come and go as she pleased. though he'd prefer it if she stayed at the company. It finally clicked for Alara. Are you asking me out? Kenji looked at her as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. Finally got it. Yes, that's exactly what I'm doing. Alara's demeanor shifted. There are plenty of passionate and impulsive people in the world, she said coldly. But you, Mr. Su, are the first to be so direct. Kenji took her hand from the table. No one ever said it was wrong. In the adult world, you don't need things like long-term commitment. True love is a burden. It just drags people down. I'm all about instant gratification. Alara snatched her hand back. Maybe you're right. Deep affection is just a form of self-torture. She thought of her unwavering love for Kian and the 5 years of hell it had earned her. A sharp pain shot through her heart, but she quickly composed herself. But even though I've had my fill of suffering and love, I refuse to lose myself to lust. It's no different from losing yourself to love. So I'm afraid I'm going to have to disappoint you. Kenji thought she was playing hard to get, but Alara made it clear she wasn't. He just shrugged. All right. In that case, I'll take that as a direct rejection. Since you've turned me down, you probably won't get another chance like this. But I'll give you the business deal anyway. The Su family can afford to be charitable. Alara gave a sarcastic smile. And I suppose I should bow down and thank you for it? Kenji's face instantly hardened. Don't push your luck, he warned. But Alara met his gaze without flinching. What's pushing my luck, and what isn't? I don't need your help if it comes with strings like that. Go find some other girl to play your games with. Her words infuriated him. But at the same time, her fiery spirit made her all the more interesting. The news of Alara and Kenji meeting at a bar blew up online, quickly becoming a trending topic. The headline read, Su family heir on late-night bar date with mystery woman. The comments section was a cesspool of vicious attacks aimed at Alara. When Kian saw the comments, he was so enraged he threw his phone across the room. He ordered his assistant to get the story taken down immediately and to block all related information. It was only then that he realized the mixed-race man from the hospital was Sophie's brother, Kenji. Kian was furious. He couldn't believe so many men were trying to get close to Alara. First Finch, then Miles, and now this Kenji. The more he thought about it, the angrier he got, his fingers unconsciously scratching lines into the surface of his desk. The next afternoon, Alara went to the Croft family's estate. The moment Leo saw his mom, he ran to her and threw his arms around her. She smiled and asked if he was home alone, but before he could answer, a voice interrupted. Alara, dear. Alara looked up to see Eleanor approaching. Eleanor greeted her warmly, but Alara's response was cold. I don't think I deserve that title. Leo immediately stepped in, positioning himself protectively beside Alara and eyeing his grandmother with suspicion. The look in his eyes chilled Eleanor to the bone. It was clear her grandson held a deep resentment for the Croft family. Eleanor could only manage a strained, complicated smile. Alara couldn't tell if it was born of hatred or guilt. The problems between adults have nothing to do with the children, Eleanor said. I'm not expecting you and my son to work things out, but Leo is Kian's son. I was hoping you could convince him not to be so distant with us. Leo was born while I was in prison, Alara stated flatly. He has nothing to do with Kian, so there are no problems to speak of. She then took out a book and some snacks she had brought for her son. Leo was thrilled and paid no attention to the complicated expression on his grandmother's face. He just wanted his mom to stay longer. But Alara was busy with work and could only promise to visit again when she had time. Eleanor quickly suggested Alara could stay over, but she refused instantly, making it clear that if it weren't for Leo, she wouldn't spend a second longer in this house. The bluntness of her words made Eleanor's face go white. Are you still angry with me? She asked. Alara was firm. Kian and I divorced 5 years ago. Stop trying to tie me down with old feelings and family obligations. She said goodbye to her son, promising to see him again soon. Leo nodded obediently. But as she turned to leave, Eleanor called out from behind her. Is there any chance for you and Kian? Without looking back, Alara threw one last sentence over her shoulder. Ma'am, don't push me. She had just reached the front door when she ran right into Kian, who was just getting home. Their eyes met and the air crackled with tension. When Kian saw Alara's cold expression, he demanded to know what she was doing there. Alara avoided his gaze. I just came to see my son. I'm leaving now. A sour feeling twisted in Kian's gut. He knew that without Leo, she would never want to see him. Jealousy flared, and he threatened to officially change Leo's last name and cut Alara out of his life completely. Why do the two of you get to be so close while I'm treated like an outsider? There was no way Alara would agree to that. She glared at him, promising her son she would bring him back to their own home. Furious, Kian told her to leave and never come back. Alara just laughed at how pathetic he was and shoved past him. Eleanor ran after her, calling her name, but she didn't look back. Finally, Eleanor turned to her son and confessed. I regret working with Chloe to drive Alara away and make things the way they are now. Kian's pupils contracted. What did you just say? He asked urgently. Eleanor told him to look into what happened 5 years ago, but warned him that he might regret it. But Kian didn't hesitate. He immediately called his assistant and ordered him to dig up everything. What was the truth of what happened 5 years ago? And what kind of scheme did Eleanor and Chloe cook up? She explained everything. How Kian had blacklisted her studio, how she had nowhere else to turn, and how she needed his help. She laid it all out, her voice tinged with desperation. She never expected him to agree so readily. Not only did he promise to send her portfolio to his contacts, but he also suggested they be friends. Her eyes lit up like stars, shining with surprise and hope. Really? She asked, hardly daring to believe it. Miles just smiled back. What do you think? Thank you so much, she said, her voice filled with gratitude. Don't be so formal. We've seen each other enough times now. Why don't we just be friends? Alara. She smiled and agreed, warmly inviting him to dinner as a thank you. He happily accepted. Meanwhile, the atmosphere in Kian's office was heavy. The man in charge of investigating the case from 5 years ago rushed in, reporting that he was hitting roadblocks. Someone was actively obstructing the investigation, and the IP address was traced overseas, making it incredibly difficult to track. Kian's brow furrowed, his eyes dark with worry. He knew this wasn't going to be simple. Keep digging, he ordered. I want every lead followed. Just then, his secretary's voice came through the intercom, announcing a visitor. The sound of high heels clicked closer, and a slender figure appeared in the doorway. Kian, it's me! Did you miss me? Before he could answer, she had thrown herself into his arms. Kian sighed and pushed her away. Stop messing around. A young woman named Amy pouted. You've changed, she said, looking hurt. Kian ignored her complaint and asked why she'd come back without telling him. Amy batted her eyelashes playfully. I wanted to surprise you. You didn't even come to pick me up when I got back. She then demanded he take her out to dinner to make up for it. Kian reluctantly agreed. When they arrived at the restaurant, Amy suddenly stopped. Isn't that Miles? And that woman with him is really pretty. Excited, she suggested they go say hi. Before Kian could react, she had linked her arm through his and was pulling him over. At that moment, Miles and Alara were deep in conversation about a design draft. He looked up when he heard his name and was surprised to see Amy, who had just returned to the country, clinging to Kian's arm. Miles, is this your new girlfriend? Amy asked, her eyes sizing up Alara. Don't talk nonsense, Miles warned immediately. But Amy persisted. Well, I've never seen you out alone with a girl before. Should I start calling her sis-in-law? Amy, that's enough! Kian's voice was sharp enough to cut glass, and it made Amy flinch. She looked at him pitifully. Are you mad at me for talking too much? Alara, who had been silent until now, saw right through her. Amy's words seemed innocent, but every sentence was designed to mislead Kian. She was even more cunning than her sister Chloe. Miles sensed Alara's hostility towards Amy and tried to diffuse the tension with an awkward laugh, inviting them to join them for dinner. Kian, hoping to smooth things over, agreed. But Alara didn't want to spend another second there. She flatly refused, her expression screaming, "Stay away from me." But Kian blocked her path. Alara, I need to ask you something. At the mention of her name, Amy's face changed. You, she gasped, covering her mouth. You're the one who killed my sister. She raised her hand to slap Alara. Kian grabbed her wrist, his eyes turning dangerously dark. Amy broke down, crying, Why are you protecting a murderer? There are still questions about what happened back then, Kian said, his voice low. And Alara already did 5 years in prison. She's paid her dues. His unusual behavior stunned Alara. The jerk was actually changing his tune? Was he defending her? But what did it matter? He was still the man who had hurt her more than anyone. The thought was enough to make her turn and walk away. You drove her away, Miles said coldly, then challenged, Is this what you wanted to see? Kian shot back a warning. Miles, stay away from Alara. But Miles's question, On what grounds are you saying that, Kian? Left him speechless. Kian tried to push away the thought that he might have been wrong about Alara 5 years ago, that she hadn't killed Chloe. But the sliver of doubt lingered, tormenting him. He couldn't believe it. He wouldn't believe it, even as tears fell from his eyes. Miles's lips curled into a knowing smile, his challenging gaze fixed on Kian. He bluntly stated his interest in Alara, and even hinted that Kian still had feelings for her. Sometimes you have to feel with your heart, he said. Everything you thought you saw back then might have been a lie. The words hit Kian like a bomb. The calm in his eyes shattered, replaced by a flash of shock and panic. Before Kian could recover, Miles added casually, I found some clues about what happened 5 years ago. If you're interested, meet me at Tiger this weekend. Then he turned and left, Kian watched him go, his mind in turmoil. The thought of clues from 5 years ago hung over him like a dark cloud, pressing down on him until he could barely breathe. Meanwhile, Alara had just stepped out of the restaurant when Kian caught up to her. "What do you want now?" she asked without turning around. "Leo has a fever," he told her. Without a second thought, Alara rushed back to the house with him. When she burst into the room and saw Leo, flushed and weak in his bed, her heart clenched. She rushed to his side, ready to take him to the hospital. But Leo just shook his head weakly. "The family doctor already came, Mommy. I took my medicine. If you just stay and tell me a story, all the hurt will go away." Alara stroked his head, her heart aching. She offered to tell him a fairy tale. But Leo suddenly got emotional, crying that he hated fairy tales because they were all lies. His outburst threw Alara into a panic. She was filled with guilt, feeling she had failed to give her son a fairy tale life. But Leo just turned his head away stubbornly, refusing her apology. Then he looked at Kian, who had been silent the whole time, and his eyes filled with resentment. "It's all your fault," he said, declaring that Kian wasn't his real daddy. Leo's words were a knife straight to Kian's heart. He even admitted he had made himself sick on purpose, just so he could be with his mother. Alara quickly comforted her son, promising she would talk to Kian and bring him home for good. Leo nodded, his eyes shining with hope. The tense atmosphere was suffocating. Kian turned and left the room, his mind racing. He tried to deny the possibility that he had been wrong 5 years ago, but the doubt was a persistent whisper. "Impossible," he muttered to himself, tears welling in his eyes. Absolutely impossible. Downstairs, he decisively dialed Miles's number. He would get to the bottom of this tonight. Later that night, in a dimly lit bar, Kian and Miles sat across from each other. Miles handed him a report. He told Kian that while Chloe had indeed fallen down the stairs, the incident had occurred in a blind spot for the mall's security cameras. There was no video evidence that Alara had pushed her. Kian started to speak, but Miles cut him off. "How did you just happen to see Alara push Chloe?" The question made Kian realize he might have missed a crucial detail. He racked his brain. "Amy," he finally said. "She mentioned Chloe was in trouble on the phone. When I looked up, I saw it." As Kian said her name, a subtle, knowing smile played on Miles's lip. Kian insisted it was a coincidence, that Amy would have no reason to harm her own sister. But Miles's next words hit him like a hammer. He pointed out that the escalator where Chloe fell had just been cleaned with a slippery detergent, and the maintenance sign had been moved. Anyone could have slipped. Kian's pupils contracted, his mind reeling with shock and confusion. Why was it so coincidental? The question echoed in his head. But he quickly found a hole in Miles's theory. How did Alara and Chloe even end up in the same place? If it was a coincidence, why was Alara there? "Are you sure you weren't just seeing things?" Kian insisted he saw Alara reach out her hand, and that multiple witnesses had confirmed it. That was why he sent her to prison. Miles just shook his head, frustrated. The truth seemed to be shrouded in another layer of fog, and they were back where they started. In a dark corner of the bar, a pair of eyes watched them intently. A mysterious woman smiled in the shadows and murmured to herself, "Looks like someone's getting impatient. You have to pull out the weeds by the roots. Don't blame me for being ruthless, Alara." It was late when Kian finished work and came home. As he was heading upstairs, he passed Leo's room, and as if pulled by an invisible force, he pushed the door open. He froze. Alara hadn't left. She and Leo were fast asleep in the bed. The scene was so peaceful, so perfect. Alara, who had been so hostile towards him during the day, was now sleeping soundly, completely vulnerable. Kian was mesmerized. He reached out to touch her face. Then he snatched his hand back as if he'd been shocked, startled by his own actions. "What am I doing?" he asked himself, before fleeing the room like a coward. Back in his own room, the image of them sleeping wouldn't leave his mind. Even after a shower, he was still making excuses to himself, saying he was just going to check if Leo's fever had broken, and tiptoed back to the room. The next morning, Alara woke up with a heavy weight on her shoulder. She looked down and saw a luxurious cashmere blanket, one of Kian's custom-made blankets. How did it end up on her? Just as she was puzzling over it, Leo's little voice piped up. "Mommy, what's wrong?" Alara quickly composed herself, thinking it couldn't have been Kian. Someone else must have put it there. She felt Leo's forehead and was relieved to find his fever was gone. She was about to leave, but Leo started to cry, begging her to stay with him for just one more day. She couldn't refuse. After she promised to stay until the afternoon, Leo's face lit up and she went downstairs to make him breakfast. Kian came downstairs to find her in the kitchen and froze. It was like being thrown back in time 5 years, to when Alara would wake up early every day to make him breakfast. Breakfast he never took with him. The familiar scene made him lose himself in the moment. Alara just glanced at him and coolly informed him she had used some things from the fridge. He responded just as coolly. Seeing him act so nonchalant, Alara felt foolish. It seemed she was the only one still haunted by memories. After she left, Kian saw it on the stove. A perfectly cooked sunny-side-up egg with a runny yolk. Just how he used to like it. For the first time in a long time, the ever-composed Kian felt his heart ache with a bittersweet pang. Did she leave this for me? He wondered. Meanwhile, Alara watched Leo happily gobble up his eggs, a weight lifting from her shoulders. She reminded him not to make himself sick on purpose again, and to just have Kian call her if he missed her. The little boy, ever the charmer, told her that her fried eggs were the best thing she made, and guessed she must have practiced a lot. The question was a direct hit to a painful memory. To satisfy Kian's picky request, she had practiced countless times. To hide her discomfort, she quickly said his uncle had taught her. Leo, none the wiser, praised his uncle's skills and teased his mom that her other dishes were just edible. She playfully pinched his cheek, but a thought suddenly struck her. She had instinctively made an extra egg, cooked exactly to Kian's preference. It was the familiar setting, the old habit kicking in without her even realizing. Horrified, she was about to rush downstairs to get rid of the evidence. But it was too late. Kian was sitting at the dining table, elegantly wiping his mouth. The egg was good, Kian said. Alara felt like she had turned to stone. Before she could explain about the egg, Kian had already left for work. Habit. What a terrifying and ridiculous word. Everything she had worked so hard for 5 years ago had crumbled in an instant. And Kian would never know that her dream had once been for him to eat an egg she had made just for him. A dream that had only come true today, 5 years too late. Leo's voice pulled her from her memories. He wanted her to spend the day with him, and she happily agreed. She settled onto the sofa with him to read a story. But the peaceful moment was interrupted by a phone call from her brother, Ethan. Hey, little sis, did you forget something? Alara glanced at the clock, confused. What? Come on, wish your big brother a happy 27th birthday. Ethan's voice boomed from the other end. It finally hit her. She quickly apologized, promising to make it up to him that night. But Ethan insisted, Where are you now? Get home. I made a huge feast for you. When he found out she was at Kian's house, he was adamant about picking her and Leo up. Alara refused, wanting to wait for Kian to get home to let him know. No way, Ethan argued. I don't trust that guy. I'm worried he'll give you a hard time. You wait for me, I'll be there in 10 minutes. He hung up before she could say another word. Alara sighed. Her brother was as overprotective as ever. That evening, when Kian got home from work, Alara walked up to him with Leo. It's my brother's birthday today, she began. I want to take Leo home, so tonight. Fine. Kian cut her off before she could finish. Just have him back by tomorrow. Alara was stunned. She never expected him to agree so easily. Before she could process it, he added, Wait, there are a few bottles of wine in the storage room I don't like. Take them with you. She was completely bewildered by his words. Suddenly, her phone rang. As soon as she answered, a stranger's frantic voice came through the line. Are you the owner's sister? Your brother was in a car accident. We're taking him to City Central Hospital. You need to get here now, you might not have much time. In an instant, all the strength left her hands, and the phone clattered to the floor. Seeing her tremble violently, Kian grabbed her shoulders. What happened? City Central Hospital, she choked out, her voice breaking. My brother, car accident. Kian's face went pale. He immediately started the car and sped towards the hospital. 40 minutes later, they arrived, but it was too late. The doctor's regretful words echoed in her ears. His injuries were too severe when he was brought in. We did everything we could, but I'm sorry. Your brother just passed away. Staring at Ethan's still form, Alara felt as if her soul had been ripped from her body. Her knees buckled and she collapsed beside the bed, memories of her brother flooding her mind. Kian tried to put his coat around her shoulders to offer some small comfort, but she slapped his hand away, her eyes filled with a burning hatred. You always wanted my family to die, didn't you? Are you happy now? I know you're in pain, Kian said, unsure of how to comfort her. But you need to rest. Alara suddenly laughed, a wild, terrible sound as tears streamed down her face. What right do I have to rest? I'm a murderer. She looked up at him, her eyes filled with a broken mockery. I really killed someone this time, Kian. Why don't you throw me in prison again? Kian stepped forward and gripped her shoulders. Ethan's death was an accident. It has nothing to do with you. Stop blaming yourself. But she violently threw his hands off, her eyes blazing with desperate hatred. If you hadn't tried to take Leo from me, my brother wouldn't have been worried about me. He wouldn't have been rushing to get me. He wouldn't have died. He died because of me. And don't you dare try to act innocent. You are the cause of all of this. Her voice rose to a heart-wrenching scream. Today was my brother's birthday, and it became the day he died. It's all your fault, Kian. I have no family left. You wanted to destroy me, didn't you? You wanted me to suffer? She stared at him, tears mixing with a cold smile, every word dripping with blood. Well, congratulations. You succeeded. Are you happy now? Kian tried to explain, but his words were empty in the face of her pain. He reached for her, but she recoiled. She stumbled out of the hospital into a sudden downpour. The cold rain soaked her instantly, but she didn't seem to notice, wandering aimlessly down the street until she reached the edge of a lake. She took a small cake out of her bag and clumsily stuck a single candle in it. The flame flickered weakly in the wind and rain. Alara stared at the small light for a long time before whispering, "Happy birthday, Ethan." She slowly cut a slice, setting a small piece aside for Leo. He would have pitched a fit if he knew he'd missed his uncle's birthday cake. "I'm sorry, I couldn't be there to celebrate with you." She took a small bite of another piece, and the tears started falling again. "This is your favorite flavor. It's really good. Do you want to try some? It's just for our family." No one else gets any. Kian stood a short distance away, holding an umbrella, his fingers trembling. He wanted to go to her, to comfort her, but he was afraid his presence would only cause her more pain. He called her name softly, but his voice was lost in the rain. Alara hugged her knees, her face buried in her arms, her shoulders shaking violently. "I'm not as strong as everyone thinks," she whispered, her voice broken. "I'm so fragile. I used to think that even if the whole world abandoned me, I would still have you. But now, I don't even have you anymore." She looked up at the dark water, as if some mysterious force was pulling her in, promising an end to the endless pain. "I don't know why I'm still alive, why life has pushed me to this point. Ethan, can I come find you? This way, no one can ever tear our family apart again." The sight of Alara walking into the water made Kian's world collapse. He dropped his umbrella and ran into the torrential rain, grabbing her wrist. "Don't be a fool! Ethan is gone. You have to move on. Leo still needs you." Alara repeated the name numbly, her eyes empty. Then she violently shook him off. "Don't you dare talk about Leo. You've only ever used him to threaten me. He's all I have left. Are you going to keep pushing me?" Kian's heart felt like it was being stabbed. "But Leo is my son too." He couldn't back down. A small part of him screamed that if he did, he would lose them forever. Tears streamed down her face, mixing with the rain. "Fine. You still won't leave us alone." She looked up, her eyes burning with a destructive fire as she stared at him. "Why do you keep pushing me? Why does everyone treat me like this?" "What did I do wrong? Won't somebody save me?" Kian held her tightly as she trembled, calling her name over and over, trying to bring her back. But her body went limp, her eyes losing focus as she continued to whisper, "Save me," until she finally lost consciousness. Panic seized him. He swept her up into his arms and ran back towards the hospital. Outside her room, he stared at the closed door, his fingers shaking uncontrollably. When the doctor's words, "Alara's depression has relapsed," they hit Kian, a crushing sense of collapse overwhelmed him. Seeing his devastated state, the doctor advised him to be gentler with her, to stop pushing her. He instinctively denied it. "I didn't" was a lie he couldn't even convince himself of. The doctor pressed on, asking if Kian could ever repay the debt he owed Alara if it turned out she hadn't been the killer 5 years ago. Kian was bewildered. What scores, what debt? Just then, he heard Alara murmuring in her sleep, crying out that she hadn't killed anyone, begging, "Don't hit me," her words laced with terror and grief. A knot tightened in Kian's chest. He went into the room and saw her forehead beaded with a cold sweat. He gently wiped it away with a towel. Seeing her curled up in pain, a sharp, stabbing ache shot through him. Why was it that seeing her suffer made him feel this way? Alara continued to talk in her sleep, and he pulled her into his arms to comfort her. But she jolted awake, and the terror in her eyes instantly turned to repulsion when she saw his face. "Let me go!" She struggled violently, but Kian held her tight. "Don't move. Your emotions are unstable right now. I'm taking you home." She sat in the back, her voice cold and distant. "I told you, I'm going home by myself." He turned to look at her, a storm of emotions in his eyes. "Where can you go in this state? Are you not happy until you've completely destroyed yourself?" Her eyes were filled with scorn. "What's that got to do with you? You wanted your son, I gave him to you. My brother is gone now. What else can you possibly hold over me? Do you really have to think that every good thing I do for you is a threat?" There was a weariness in his voice he couldn't hide. "I just want you to rest and get better." At his words, she let out a low laugh, and tears instantly filled her eyes. "Good things? Is that supposed to be a joke?" She paused. Her hands clenched so tightly her knuckles turned white. "You only ever cared about your precious Chloe, didn't you? In your eyes, I was nothing. I thought you wouldn't even blink if I died. And now you're telling me you're being good to me? How ridiculous. Her words were like needles stabbing into his heart. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. A wave of anger washed over him and he started the car. Don't be so ungrateful, I'm just trying to… He trailed off when he saw the way she was biting her lip, stubbornly trying to hold back her tears. But Alara had reached her breaking point and insisted on getting out. When Kian refused to stop, she threw the car door open. A cold sweat broke out on his skin as he slammed on the brakes. She didn't hesitate to jump. His heart clenched, and he scrambled out of the car after her. Are you okay? She used a lamppost to pull herself up, staggering to her feet. Her face was streaked with tears as she looked back at him. Stay away! Kian's outstretched hand froze in midair. It felt like an invisible hand was squeezing his heart. Why do you have to be like this? But she was trembling, pointing to the busy street, her eyes filled with a desperate resolve. If you take one more step, I'll run into traffic and kill myself. I mean it. Try me. Kian was truly panicked. The dead, determined look in her eyes was a sharp knife, slicing his heart open. Do you hate me that much? Her answer was a single word, light as a feather, but it landed on his heart like a ton of bricks. He took a deep breath and softened his tone, trying to soothe her. Your depression has relapsed. Please, just calm down. We can talk when we get home. She repeated the word home numbly, and then the tears came, streaming down her face. I don't have a home anymore. Have you forgotten, Mr. Croft? The Sterling family was destroyed 5 years ago. Now my brother is dead. What home do I have left? Come back to the Croft mansion. There was an uncharacteristic plea in his voice. But she just laughed, a sound full of scorn. That's your home, it was never mine. He stepped forward and put his hands on her shoulders, wanting to say it had been their home once, but the words wouldn't come. He suddenly realized she was serious about dying, and he had to give her a reason to live. He reminded her that her son was still waiting for her. As he'd hoped at the mention of her son, the emptiness in her eyes wavered. He was her only weakness. Kian seized the opportunity. He yanked off his tie and, without a second's hesitation, used it to bind her hands. What are you doing? Let me go! She cried, struggling against him. Once her hands were tied, he ignored her protests and swept her up into his arms. He felt her go stiff and whispered, Calm down. I'm taking you to see your son. Kian finally brought Alara back to the Croft mansion. The moment he set her down on the bed, she demanded to see Leo. But Kian just took out a bottle of antiseptic. If you can't fight back, you might as well obey. That's what a smart person would do. But you're just running on instinct and impulse. What can you possibly win against me? His words just made her laugh coldly. She knew she could never be as heartless as him. Kian leaned over to clean her wounds. The cold liquid on her leg made her flinch, but he held her thigh steady. Don't move. It'll be over in a second. Why are you pretending to be a good person now? But his expression was blank. I was never a good person. This wound is just an eyesore. His gaze was as sharp as a knife, making her cheeks burn. What do I owe you, Kian? She choked out, tears finally spilling from her eyes. I've given you everything. I have nothing left. What more do you want from me? Just let me go. If this keeps up, I don't think I'm going to make it. The words "let me go" seemed to trigger something in him. The pressure in the room dropped, and he seized her chin, his voice a low threat. Only I get to decide when this is over. You don't get to call it quits. Isn't it enough? Her silent, mocking smile was a reflection of his own cruelty. One day everything I've lost will be because of you, Kian. Just then the bedroom door was thrown open. Kian! A frail voice called out. The moment Amy burst in and saw Alara, her face went white. She didn't lie to me, she muttered to herself. She really didn't lie. Before Kian could ask who she was, Amy rushed forward and swung at Alara. You murderer, what right do you have to be in Kian's house? But before the slap could land, Alara caught her wrist, a cold smile on her lips. You want to hit me? The look in her eyes made Amy flinch. She snatched her hand back and stumbled away, her own eyes instantly filling with tears. Kian, she whimpered, pointing at Alara. Why is there another woman in your house? Amy, stop it, Kian said, but his gaze shifted to Alara. Alara found the whole act laughable. Ask him, she said. I'd like to know why he's keeping me here, too. Amy threw herself into Kian's arms, sobbing. Why is she here, Kian? Why? He didn't push her away, just looked at Alara. But Alara was watching the two of them with a calm, detached expression, as if it had nothing to do with her. Why was she so unfazed? The indifference stung him. He roughly pushed Amy away. She's just staying here temporarily. Alara just sneered. Kian really couldn't see what a snake Amy was. If Chloe knew her own sister was after her man, she'd probably rise from the grave. Suddenly, the door opened again. "Mommy!" Leo's bright voice called out. "You were here!" Alara's expression instantly softened. "Leo, come here," she called, and the little boy ran into her arms, hugging her tightly. "Mommy, why did it take you so long to come see me?" He then turned to Kian, his little face a mask of vigilance. "Did Mr. Croft yell at you again?" Amy saw the little boy and her heart sank. So this was Alara and Kian's child. "Don't worry, Mommy's not sad," Alara said, smoothing his hair. "But Mr. Croft has yelled at Mommy so many times." He held Alara's hand tightly, his gaze firm and far too grown up for his age. "Don't be scared, Mommy. We'll be together again soon." Alara couldn't shake the feeling that there was something different about Leo today, something in his eyes she couldn't understand. But he quickly smiled, and she dismissed it as her imagination. "Sleeping with Mommy tonight," he announced, then looked at Kian and Amy, his tone childish but firm. "You two can leave now. Mommy and I are going to rest." As Kian led Amy out, she glanced back at the mother and son on the bed. A vicious look flashed in her eyes, and she made a decision. She had to get rid of that child. That afternoon, Leo begged Alara to take him out. After much pleading, she finally gave in. The little boy held his mom's hand and stood before Kian. "Mr. Croft, I would like to go to the mall with my mommy." He sounded like an employee asking for time off. Kian looked at their clasped hands, at how they clung to each other as if they expected him to hurt them at any moment. 1,000 thoughts raced through his mind, but in the end, he just said one word: "Go." Alara was surprised. Kian wasn't stopping them. It was so unlike him. But his cold laugh a second later shattered her brief illusion. "Go ahead, try to run with him. But if I catch you, things won't be as easy as they are now." Alara just laughed to herself. Of course. He was still the same cold, ruthless Kian. "Then thank you for your mercy today, Mr. Croft." Kian frowned, but before he could say anything, Leo was already pulling a cheerful Alara out the door. "Mommy, don't just stand there. Let's go." The boy's happy expression was like a silent slap in Kian's face. He had never seen Leo look at him that way, and a sad, bitter feeling washed over him. He watched them go, his gaze lingering long after they were gone. Beside him, Amy quietly took out her phone and sent a message. The mall was bustling. Alara and Leo spent a long time at a claw machine, finally winning a fluffy stuffed animal. A little while later, Leo told her he had to go to the bathroom. She walked him to the men's room door. "Mommy will wait out here for you." Leo nodded and went inside, clutching his new toy. 5 minutes passed, and there was no sign of him. Alara started to panic. "Leo, is your tummy upset? Is it okay if Mommy comes in to check on you?" Only the echo of her voice answered her. She pushed the door open and immediately saw the stuffed animal on the floor. It was the one Leo had been holding. Her heart seized. Just then, a man walked up, whistling. "Hey, gorgeous. Looking for a good time?" Alara grabbed him, her voice frantic. "Have you seen my son? He's about this tall, 5 or 6 years old. Why worry about him?" The man's eyes turned vicious as he grabbed her and pulled her forward. "That little brat is lucky if he's still alive. Why don't we have some fun first?" Alarm bells went off in Alara's head. She tried to scream, but a hand clamped over her mouth. She bit down hard, and the man yelled in pain, retaliating by grabbing her head and slamming it against the bathroom door. "You bite me? You're asking for it!" A wave of pain washed over her, and tears mixed with the blood trickling from her forehead. The world went black, and she lost the strength to fight. The man threw her over his shoulder and made a call. "Miss, I've got her, bringing her to you now." "The kid? Don't worry, I've got him too." Kian waited at home all day, but as darkness fell, Alara still hadn't returned. The unease in his chest grew stronger. She wouldn't dare defy him again. She wouldn't just disappear. He called her phone, but it went straight to voicemail. A knot of panic tightened in his stomach. Did she really run? He immediately dialed another number. "Find out where Alara is. Now." The reply came back quickly. "Her phone's IP address is at a mall and it hasn't moved." Kian's face went pale. "Get me the security footage from the mall." The news was grim. The footage showed Alara going into the men's restroom and never coming out. A man followed her in, and he didn't come out either. "I think she's been kidnapped." The word kidnapped hit Kian like a physical blow. A fear he had never known before consumed him, leaving him struggling to breathe. Meanwhile, Alara slowly woke up on a cold, concrete floor. The first thing she saw was a leering, brutish face. "You're awake again?" She tried to move, but her hands and feet were bound with coarse rope. The man grabbed her chin. "The boss wasn't lying. Even after having a kid, you're still in great shape. You'll do just fine for me and the boys. Stay away from me." Alara screamed, her voice hoarse. The man grabbed her by the hair and dragged her up. "What's with all the screaming? You'll be doing plenty of that later. If you fight back, I can't guarantee what will happen to your precious son." Alara's heart leaped into her throat, and tears streamed down her face. Where's Leo? What have you done to him? So you do care about him. Looks like the little brat is your weak spot. He threw her onto a shabby cot. If he died, would you go crazy? He paused, then asked playfully, so what did you do to piss off our boss so much? I don't know who you're talking about. Don't touch me. She screamed, a cold dread washing over her. The man laughed at her helpless state. Since you're about to die anyway, I might as well tell you. Our boss is Miss Amy. You know her, right? Alara's mind went blank. If you dare to hurt Leo, I'll never forgive you. You'll pay for this. The woman who seemed so sweet and harmless was even more ruthless than her sister. Not only did she want to get rid of her, but she was going after Leo too. The man just sneered and pushed her face down onto the mattress. Pay for it? That's the most useless concept in the world. Just something for pathetic people like you to tell yourselves. I've been alive this long and I'm doing just fine. Just as she was sinking into despair, there was a soft knock at the door. The man instantly tensed. Who is it? He growled. Simple rustic voice answered from outside. It was a neighbor offering to share some food. A flicker of hope ignited in Alara. But before she could scream for help, the man's cold threat extinguished it. You make a sound, and I can't guarantee you'll ever see your son again. She could only pray desperately that someone would save her. But no one could have predicted what would happen next. As the rickety wooden door creaked open, the kidnapper's arrogant smirk froze into a mask of pure terror. In the next second, a tall figure burst through the darkness. Without a word, the man unleashed a flying kick, sending the kidnapper soaring across the room with the force of his unbridled rage. Alara stared wide-eyed. She couldn't believe it. In her darkest moment, the person who had come to save her was Kian. When Kian saw the woman lying on the filthy cot, his mind went blank. It felt as if an invisible hand had wrapped around his heart and squeezed, the pain so intense he could barely breathe. As her consciousness faded, Alara had one last thought. If I could do it all over again, I would never have fallen in love with him. Alara, don't be scared, I'm here! Kian roared, carefully scooping her into his arms. I'm taking you to the hospital, don't you dare fall asleep on me. He followed her into the ambulance, clutching her blood-stained hand, his body racked with tremors, tears of fear streaming down his face. Open your eyes, please. Alara, don't do this to me. I'm begging you! Alara was unconscious for 5 long days. For 5 days and 5 nights, Kian never left her side. When she finally woke up and saw the hospital room, her first thought was of Leo. She tried to sit up, but her hand was being held tightly. She looked down and saw Kian asleep, his head resting on the edge of her bed. Even in sleep, he hadn't let go of her hand. She instinctively yanked her hand away. The sudden movement startled Kian awake. Don't take her away, he mumbled, disoriented. When he saw that Alara was awake, a flash of embarrassment crossed his face. You're awake? Are you in any pain? I'll get the doctor. Where's Leo? She asked urgently. There was no gratitude in her eyes, only a cold, detached distance. Kian felt that something had changed in her, but he couldn't put his finger on it. It was like there was something in her eyes he couldn't understand. After a moment of silence, her eyes reddened, and her voice filled with anger and accusation. Do you know who kidnapped us? It's because you forced Leo to stay with you that Amy came after us. Amy is a sweet girl, Kian denied instantly. She would never do something like that. Alara let out a cold, humorless laugh. You really are the most pathetic man in the world. You can't see anything for what it is. If you ever want to see your son again, you'll listen to me. Kian's brow furrowed. In his frustration, he blurted out, Stop talking bad about Amy and take a look at yourself for a change. The words were a dagger to her heart. She trembled with rage and threw his hand off of her. I'm taking my son and leaving. Kian's heart clenched. He knew that if she took Leo, she would be gone from his life forever. You don't have the right to take him, he said, his voice low and cold. I don't have the right? Alara stared at him, her eyes blazing with defiance. Kian, either hand over Amy or let us go. I will not let my son stay with a murderer. The word murderer hit Kian hard, and a wave of irritation washed over him. Alara, stop using your pain as an excuse to blow things out of proportion. But she cut him off. I'm not in pain. My broken life is in someone else's hands. What right do I have to be in pain? Seeing her red-rimmed eyes, the hurtful words died on his lips. He watched her desperate attempts to escape, and a sense of panic washed over him. He didn't know what to do. Just then, the door opened softly. Leo peeked his head in. Mommy! Ilara's expression instantly softened. Come here, she called, and he ran to her. She held him tight, asking if he was okay. Leo hugged her neck and assured her he was fine. Then he turned to Kian. Mr. Croft, I'd like to talk to my mommy alone. Could you please leave? Kian looked at the two of them, clinging to each other, and a strange sense of panic, a powerful feeling of unease washed over him. He felt like he was about to lose something important. After Kian left, Leo looked at his mother with adoring eyes and told her how much he loved her. Alara's eyes welled up with tears. She hugged him tightly, feeling she had put him through too much. But the wise little boy comforted her, then suggested that for his sake, she should let him go for a while. He knew he was her weakness. Only by giving him up could she break free from Kian's control and regain her freedom. His words left Alara stunned. How could she give up her most precious treasure? But looking into her son's eyes, which held a wisdom and determination far beyond his years, she was convinced. You've grown up so fast, my little man. It's all my fault you have to worry about these things at your age. Leo held her hand tightly, his gaze firm. Mommy, it's not our fault. Don't worry about me. Go live your own life. I know you can do it. Tears streamed down her face, and she was at a loss for words. Don't worry, Mommy, he continued. As soon as you're free from Mr. Croft, I'll come find you. That afternoon, Alara checked out of the hospital. Outside, in the pouring rain, the final showdown was about to begin. Kian rushed up to her, his brow furrowed with a possessive concern. You're not even healed. Where are you going? She just looked at him, her eyes as cold as a stranger's. Kian, I'm finally free of you. His heart sank. What about your son? Leo is still with me. Her reply was a blade to his heart. I don't want him anymore. The words hit him like a lightning strike, a searing pain shooting through his entire body. Say that again, he demanded, his voice trembling. Her next words were even crueler. You like using Leo to threaten me, don't you? Well, you win. He's all yours. I don't want him. From now on, you have nothing left to hold over me. He reached for her as she walked away, but his hand closed on empty air. The umbrella fell from his grasp. He stood there in the rain, unable to tell if the water on his face was from the sky or from his own eyes. She didn't want him? She was giving up Leo? How badly did she want to leave him that she would abandon the one thing she cherished most in the world? His assistant rushed over with another umbrella. It's over, Kian whispered. Sir, what do you mean? It's all over. Isn't this what I wanted? I have the sun. I have the leverage, so why does it hurt so much? Kian closed his eyes, his hands clutching his chest. Meanwhile, Alara returned home and washed away all the pain and weakness in a hot shower. She had one thought. Leo is right. I can't be tangled up with Kian anymore. Only when I have more power can I negotiate with him again. Leo trusts me. I can't let him down. It was time for Dama to return. A few days later, a grand fashion gala was in full swing. Did you hear? The famous designer Dama is supposed to be here tonight, people whispered. She's been anonymous for so long. Is she finally going to reveal herself? On stage, the host smiled. Welcome, everyone, to this year's fashion gala. Tonight, we are honored to have the renowned designer Dama as our special guest. Please give her a warm welcome. As he finished, Alara appeared, a vision in a stunning red evening gown. She was radiant and elegant, and every eye in the room was on her. My God, Dama is beautiful, someone in the crowd gasped. Talented and gorgeous, it's not fair. Alara smiled at the audience. Hello everyone, I'm Dama. It's a pleasure to finally meet you all. The host prompted her. Can you tell us, is there a special meaning behind the name Dama? Dama means dawn, Alara explained, her voice captivating. I went through a period of complete darkness in my life. It left deep scars and pushed me into an abyss. I longed for the sunrise, for a new beginning. If I could, I wanted to be my own light. I believe the darkness will always pass and the light will always come. Now I'm back. I'm standing here again telling myself the sun is finally rising. She then gracefully extended an invitation to the crowd, announcing that she was open to new business collaborations. Her words sent a ripple of excitement through the venue. Industry insiders buzzed. Dama is looking for a partner? If we could sign her, our design team would be on another level. I'm getting in touch with her team immediately. Just as offers were about to flood in, her phone rang. She gave an apologetic smile to the gentleman in front of her and turned to answer the call. The moment she heard Kian's low voice say her name, she hung up without a second thought. She couldn't understand why he was suddenly calling her. But she quickly composed herself, put on a professional smile, and turned to the next corporate representative who approached her. On the other end of the line, Kian stood frozen, listening to the dial tone. He didn't understand why he was so desperate to hear her voice, even if it was just to scream at him. He turned to his assistant. Get me a drink. Sir, you shouldn't drink anymore, the assistant advised. Kian didn't seem to hear him. Is a person always haunted by what they can't have? He murmured after a long silence. The assistant thought for a moment. Sir, you've never truly lost anything. The words made Kian laugh, a bitter, self-deprecating sound. Are you mocking me? Saying I've never truly had anything either? The assistant fell silent and just poured him another glass. Ever since Alara left, Kian had been relying on alcohol to sleep. She had claimed to love him 5 years ago, so why was it so easy for her to just walk away now? A few days later, Alara called her son Leo to share the good news about her new job. Congratulations, Mommy. Leo's cheerful voice came through the phone. Don't worry about me. I'm eating lots every day so I can grow up big and strong to protect you. You have to take care of yourself too and wait for me with Uncle Ethan. At the mention of Ethan, Alara's eyes reddened. Uncle Ethan would be so happy to see you all grown up. Okay, Mommy has to go to work now, so I'm hanging up. After she ended the call, she whispered to the air, Ethan, Leo is still thinking of you. You're not alone. No one has forgotten you. Meanwhile, after Leo hung up the phone, the innocent, cheerful expression on his face vanished, replaced by a coldness that was far beyond his years. Across from him on the sofa, Amy was fuming. She couldn't understand why Kian continued to ignore her, no matter how hard she tried to win him over. As Leo walked past her, he glanced up. Amy immediately put on a sweet smile. Leo, sweetheart, do you need something? Auntie Amy, you can stop pretending. No one else is watching. His cold voice and sharp gaze were so much like Kian's when he was angry that it gave her a jolt. I know you have a problem with me, she stammered, but I'm not the one who drove your mother away. That look? It's actually kind of scary, she thought, but he's just a 5-year-old kid. What can he possibly do? She didn't believe Alara's son could be a threat. But Leo didn't give her a chance to make excuses. I know it was you. You hired someone to kidnap me. His words made Amy's face drain of color. I don't know what you're talking about, Leo. Why would you say that? Your mother must have put that idea in your head. Don't say such things. Auntie would never do that. You talk too much, Leo said with an impatient click of his tongue, his tone a perfect imitation of Kian's. You don't have to deny it. I know you paid those people to kidnap me and my mommy, and you threatened their families to make sure they wouldn't tell Kian the truth, which is why they all stuck to the story that it was a random crime. He spoke with a clarity and logic that was chilling. Amy's pupils contracted. She was stunned. How could a 5-year-old have such a sharp, analytical mind? She forced down her panic and retorted, Your mother must have told you to say that. After a moment, she calmed down. She was an adult. There was no way a child could outsmart her. If you really had proof it was me, why didn't you tell your father? Because you're just repeating lies your mother told you. Don't think you can beat me with this. Your father will never believe your nonsense. I never planned on telling Mr. Croft, Leo replied, because I think someone like him deserves someone like you. He shouldn't be allowed to ruin my mommy's life. Amy was completely floored. It wasn't that he didn't have proof. He just didn't deign to ask Kian for help. He had seen the truth from the very beginning. How deep and terrifying was this child's mind? Leo just laughed. You know, you made a mistake. You underestimated me because I'm a kid. And that's why you lost. I heard you making the calls, arranging everything so many times. I just didn't feel like exposing you, because I thought this was the perfect opportunity. A jolt of realization shot through Amy. She had been played by a 5-year-old. Leo didn't say another word, just chuckled and headed upstairs. He was still just a little boy, but his thoughts were far beyond his years. As she watched him go, a murderous look filled Amy's eyes. If this child knew everything, he couldn't be allowed to live. But as he walked up the stairs, Leo sensed the vicious glare from behind him. He slowly turned his head and gave Amy a wide grin. This was exactly what he wanted, for her to hate him enough to want him dead. He clutched the phone in his pocket and whispered to the air, Mommy, just wait. Wait a little longer. I'll be able to come find you soon. The manager greeted her warmly, calling her a goddess, which made her laugh. He apologized for the clutter, explaining that they were busy, but said they had cleared a space for her and invited her to the design department. Alara happily followed. When they arrived, a friendly girl with short hair welcomed her, telling her the studio had a very relaxed atmosphere. After a quiet hello, Alara immediately dove into her work. She thought it would be a smooth start, but she had no idea what kind of surprise was waiting for her in the design department. As the office manager was handing out coffee, a mountain of files next to Alara suddenly moved, making her jump. Peeking out from under the papers was a man with glasses. Her new colleagues immediately started teasing him, calling him a vampire, who had been woken up by the scent of a newcomer. Sean, look who's sitting next to you, someone called out. The man, Sean, groggily turned his head. The moment Alara saw his face, she froze. The narrow, almond-shaped eyes, the sharp jawline, he looked exactly like her late brother, Ethan. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she started to tremble. Sean was clearly not expecting this reaction. Do I know you? He asked, confused. The voice was wrong, but the face was a perfect match to her memory. Alara fought back a wave of emotion. You look a lot like someone I knew, who passed away, she choked out. Her words, however, seemed to set him off. So you're saying I look like a dead guy? He snapped, his brow furrowed. The girl, Faye, and another colleague nicknamed Green Dino quickly intervened, telling Sean not to be so harsh and explaining that Alara just meant he resembled a loved one. But Sean just glared at Green Dino. Don't call me that, he warned. Alara couldn't help but look at his profile again. It was a perfect match for Ethan's. How old are you? She asked instinctively. He turned and gave her a cold, sarcastic look. Is this your latest pickup line? The smile on Alara's face froze. I'm sorry, she stammered. I can't help but compare you to my brother. Well, sorry to disappoint you, he sneered, but I don't have a sister. Even though she knew he wasn't her brother, his words still stung. I'm sorry, she said, forcing a smile. I didn't mean to bother you. Sean didn't waste any more time on her. He opened her design sketches, and a flicker of surprise crossed his face. They didn't quite fit the game's style. They were fresh and creative. But what came out of his mouth was, "This is all outdated. Are you trying to turn our dating sim into a high-fashion knockoff? The main characters are cute girls. They need to look sweet, not like they're ready for a couture runway show." Alara didn't get angry. Instead, she humbly accepted his criticism. He continued to berate her for not understanding the game's target audience and just showing off her skills. He handed her a stack of papers and told her to study up. Alara took the materials and nodded seriously, immediately starting on a new sketch. As he watched her work, Sean couldn't help but be impressed. She learned quickly. Just then, Faye came in with news. A major client was coming tomorrow. If the meeting went well, the game could launch next month. Everyone suggested Sean handle the meeting, but he refused, saying he wasn't prepared and wasn't in the mood. Strangely, everyone else in the studio seemed to want to avoid it too. In the end, all eyes turned to Alara. Not wanting to refuse, she reluctantly took on the task. She thought it was a good opportunity to contribute. It was raining when she left work. As she stood at the entrance, wondering what to do, she heard footsteps behind her. It was Sean, holding an umbrella. I'll walk you to the taxi stand, he said, his face blank. Alara stared at the face that looked so much like her brother's, and after a moment's hesitation, she quietly said, "Thank you." Sean noticed her brief pause and thought, she must have really loved her brother. Just as they stepped into the rain, a figure emerged from the shadows behind them. It was Kian, his face wet with rain, his hand gripping a slim umbrella. He watched them walk away, and a self-deprecating smile touched his lips as he realized what he was doing. The rain streamed down his face, and his dark eyes were as cold as the drizzling rain itself. The next day, knowing she had to meet with a client, Alara took extra care with her makeup. As soon as she walked into the office, Faye's eyes lit up. If I were a guy, I'd totally fall in love with you. The office manager came over and patted her on the shoulder. The future of our studio is in your hands, he said dramatically. Nervous but excited, Alara finally went to meet the client. She took a deep breath, pushed open the meeting room door, and was about to put on her best professional smile when the words caught in her throat. Sitting on the sofa was Kian, dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, looking every bit the handsome, sophisticated businessman. Alara's world tilted on its axis. She stood frozen in the doorway, her mind completely blank. Kian saw her and a smirk played on his lips. What? Surprised to see me?